brought ahead. Kyrou, partial break, in, shoots, score! Jordan Kyrou got the pass off the far wall, brought it in, and finally scores on the breakaway. What a relief it'll be for him. Blues bring it to Krug. He goes back far wing, score! Verona looks to the rafters with a big thank you, and it's 3-0 Blues as Krug has just dished out two beauties to the forward. They chip at the center, and that'll do it. Bring out the Zamboni. A 5-0 shutout win for the St. Louis Blues. They've won 3 in a row and now go to the West Coast on a streak.
Oh, how about this? The Blues are back, baby. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, I think I'm on board. I think I'm ready to buy back in.
Are we allowing him on board is the real question, Blues fans.
No. Listen,
you're not on board either.
That's fine.
T-Bone doesn't want on board.
Yeah.
The Blues
T-Bone
have
acts
won
like he
5
does.
of their last 6 games. The offense is now showing up in a legitimately meaningful way. Last night, Torey Krug might have been the best player on the ice. Hot damn, didn't know that I was going to be saying that this year. And the only reason I'm saying might have is because Jordan Binnington also happens to be playing on the same hockey team as him. And my God, looks like one of the best goalies in the NHL. You want to talk Vezina? We can do that another day, Alex. Not today.
Let's
Not today.
go!
We're not there yet. We're only 14 games into the season.
Listen up, Craig.
Give us about 40, and if he's still playing this way, we'll have the conversation. But, whew, looking good, all right? You're doing this now against quality hockey teams. Going up against Arizona in yesteryear, yeah, we're not going to get excited about that. This year, it's a good team, man. You were able to beat them 2-1. Then you travel on the road, long changes, elevation. I've heard all the excuses about why you can't play in Colorado, right? Well, you went out there and kicked their ass. Then yesterday, on home ice, which has become a theme for this team, where they just take care of business when they're here. They stand on their business. They go out there 5-0 shutout against Tampa Bay. How about that?
Just pulled the business.
You'd love to see it,
just
man.
took some letters out of that word.
I'm in.
Man, you need to stop talking like this because I'm going to have to turn the heat down because it's getting hot in here right now. The Blues are officially back, boys. Celebrate good time.
Somebody on the text line said yesterday BK said he needed to see it for another month, and today he saw one more game. He's all in.
I know.
Typical
Yesterday,
BK.
you and I said, like,
He
I'd
goes
like
through
to
a roller coaster of emotions.
Yesterday, he and I were like, let's defer our taxes for a couple more weeks. No, we'll pay now. We got the money.
This team has scored 13 goals in 2 games. All I needed was some fun, man. This team was boring as hell the first 10 games of the year.
You know
yeah,
what's-
it was effective. I didn't like it. It wasn't fun for me.
What's crazy about this is, like, offensively, even when they were bad, I was like, okay, well, the offense is going to come. Like, you can't have a career worst for all of these guys on the offensive side. The defense was the part that I said, like, I need to know if this is a real or if this is just some type of, hey, look, we're good. And then all of a sudden, boom. Yeah, 8 straight games. I looked at this last night. I went on, like, this weird rabbit hole binge, which I don't know why. Through 14 games so far this season, the Blues have allowed the 3rd least goals at even strength. They've only allowed 22 through 13 games. Last year, through 14 games, they allowed 34 goals, which was the 8th most at even strength. And it's the same freaking defense that they're performing with. But it's the back-checking of the forwards. It's the pressure that the Blues are putting up at the blue line, forcing teams to play hard. But you said it. It's Torey bleeping Krug. And honestly, it's his line mate, Justin Falk, who, by the way, among defensemen is 5th best with a plus-minus at +12. Those two guys are a +20. Last year at this time, they were a -17. They have turned their season around. And it's crazy to say that one guy could do that much impact. There were a lot of guys that you needed to. Colton Parayko, who's been great. Jordan Binnington, who's been great. Now you're seeing the best of Robert Thomas. But you're talking offense. This is how your offense is dangerous. When Torey Krug is performing like this, 6 points in 3 games, he is single-handedly finding ways to create odd man rushes and high-danger chances for this team solely from his offensive ability in passing.
Craig Berube talks a lot about activating the D, right?
Always got to activate the D. Remember.
And what we're seeing right now is that they have found a way to get them involved. The D are highly involved in the Blues offense right now. And when that happens, this team is at its best, right? And what? What's going on?
Hey, look, man, if the D forechecks hard and the D plays the cycle game, the D is going to assist the O. It's the way I look at it.
Okay, so
You get O from the D.
Oh, my.
I've always said that about them. The Blues right now are getting the best out of Torey Krug. Apparently, you guys had a conversation on Friday. I didn't listen. I'm not going to lie to you. I was in Austin. I was having a good time at a
You weren't
brewery.
leaving until like 9 o'clock at night.
That was Thursday. Friday, though, you had a conversation about...
Oh, yeah, that's right. I don't keep track of your
time
schedule.
stuff. You guys had a conversation about whether or not you can buy into Torey Krug as a player if it's just his defense that you're really buying into. My answer to that question, if I was here, would have been a resounding no.
That's what
Because
mine was.
that's not who Torey Krug is. He's not here. He's not paid the way that he is because of his defense. Just not the case. He can be average defensively, and I'm fine with it. You have to get offense out of him. You have to get him to start producing on the power play. And you have to get passes like we saw last night. Dude, that, 20-second stretch where he had the 2 passes, one to Verona, the other to
Kyrou. That no-look pass to Kyrou to put him on a breakaway,
I needed a cigarette afterwards. That was amazing.
I needed a sandwich. So tells you kind of where both of us are at right now.
We're feeling good after
Very
it.
good.
They were activating the D.
They were activating the D, and look what happened.
Exactly.
The
We
D
need
got
cigarette and
activated.
sandwich.
The O started working.
So if that's real, if what we're seeing in the last couple of games is something that we can't expect for them, not every night, but on a regular basis, dude, this team's pretty good. And you didn't mention a player. You were talking about how they've been the goal suppression has been better this year because of the defensive core, because the forwards are back checking, because of all of these different things. You didn't mention a player that I think we need to bring up. Jordan Binnington, man. Jordan Binnington right now is playing like the goalie that Alex has told us he is in recent years. I don't think he's been that guy over the last few seasons. I think the player that you're watching right now, this is not just the defense is better, the forwards are forechecking. Man, that guy is better in net right now.
Oh, yeah.
He looks awesome. He is comfortable. He's making all of the big saves that are necessary for the most part. There's a couple of goals here and there that he'd want back, no doubt about it, but welcome to goaltending in the NHL. He is as consistent as anything that the Blues have this year. They've been up and down when it comes to their offense. They've been up and down even defensively this year. Their power play has not had any ups. The penalty kill's been good at times, but bad at times as well. He has been the one thing that is consistent from start to finish so far this year. He's been awesome. He's been exactly the goalie that Alex has been telling us that he's capable of becoming.
After that shutout last night, he's now 7th best in the National Hockey League in save percentage. And on home ice, this is the other factor. We'll talk about their home play, but Jordan Binnington has been the 2nd best goaltender in the National Hockey League on home ice. You don't win that game unless Jordan Binnington plays the way he plays in the second period, because your defense wasn't that good in the second period.
Terrible.
Tampa just outplayed you, and I expected that. It's a push from Tampa Bay, who was coming into that game being shut out, so like they needed offense. They were going to bring it. Here's the part that Jordan Binnington is doing that he didn't do last year. He is swallowing every single shot that is put on him. There's no more rebounds. There's no more pucks bouncing off of his pad and going right out in the gut of the ice. He's closing them up and forcing the Blues to take faceoff, which don't look now, but I think that's 5 straight games that the Blues have won more faceoffs than their opposition. Their faceoff numbers have been really good. So when your goaltender is doing that, and he's making saves with bodies in front of him, he's making saves with guys standing on the doorstep picking up deflections, he's seeing pucks like one of the best goaltenders in the National Hockey League. And you're not in this position. You don't allow your team to figure out this system, this style that they want to play, if your goaltender plays like he did last year. Because what happens is your defense doesn't get involved. The D doesn't get involved in the O if your goaltender is not performing this way. His confidence that he has built up with his team allows the Blues to say, let's jump up into the rush. Let's start getting some offense from our defensemen. Let's start being aggressive in the offensive zone, because we know if there's an odd man rush the other way, one, our team is going to get back. It's not this straight-legged it and figure out, oh, well, we made a mistake. They'll get back, but Jordan Binnington's making these saves like no other goaltender, so you know you're good.
Yeah, and when we talked in the preseason about how do you beat this new scheme the Blues are going to, the number one answer everybody said was if you allow rebounds. And to your point, with him swallowing up and allowing no rebounds, it prevents that opportunity there. So if you keep everything to the outside and your goalie just corrals it, and then you're good on the faceoff dot, well, there's your 1, 2, 3 success right there to help yourselves defensively. And I'll say this too, Colton Brayko is playing at a different level this year,
yeah.
too. I mean, +2 last night. That goal was incredible, coming from all the way back at basically at the goal line there in his own end to just flying down the middle of the ice to get that puck, and then a nice little shot there as well. Parayko's now playing like that number one defenseman that we had always talked about him being.
Do you guys know how many rebound goals the Blues allowed last year?
It's got to be top 5 in the National Hockey
For what
League.
it's worth, Columbus last year was the worst in the NHL with 41 rebound goals allowed.
I'd say the Blues allowed at least 25 to 30.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
36
Yeah.
at 5-on-5. That's not including anything on the penalty kill. But at 5-on-5, you allowed 36 rebound goals against. You know how many they've allowed so far this year?
0.
Right now, number 1 in the NHL, so the worst. The worst in the NHL. Columbus once again right up there, tied.
Hey, welcome back.
With the New Jersey Devils. They've allowed 7 rebound goals so far
Say
this
the Blues have allowed.
I'll go 2.
I'm gonna say 1, 2.
It's 2. Only the Islanders and the Minnesota Wild have been better this year at preventing rebound goals at 5-on-5 than the Blues. So the Blues went from the second worst in the league at this to the second best in the league at this, while playing a defense that should allow more of these opportunities.
With the exact same players.
It's amazing. It's crazy, man. It is genuinely crazy that this is happening right now, but this is where we're at. And so when I say all of this, Alex, it makes me think back to our preseason conversations, and especially to one that we had with Greg Wyshynski, where he said, hey, when I look at the Central Division, I kind of lean towards a team like the Nashville Predators because they're going to have the goal suppression. We know that. And they're going to have just enough goal scoring, he believed, to be able to get into that like 3-4 mix in the Central Division. I'm going to go ahead and look at where the Nashville Predators are right now. Okay, they're at last in the Central Division. They have allowed 52 goals on the season. The Blues, meanwhile, are, depending on if you want to go by points percentage or the points, 3rd or 4th in the Central Division right now. They've allowed 36 goals on the season. The Blues have become what everybody thought the Predators were going to be. They're doing this with an offensive-minded defenseman. They've got a number 1 defenseman now in Colton Parayko. They've got forwards that are back-checking, and they've got a goalie that's standing on his head. Oh, and a culture, by the way, that has been revitalized, it appears. Sounds like what everybody was saying about the Predators coming into the year. That is the exact profile of team that everybody thought Nashville was going to be. The Blues have become that, and the Predators have become something very different so far this year.
You mean when their general manager states that the team is about to go through a rebuild, you're not buying into a team being a playoff team? Surprise, surprise. It is very strange to me how they flipped, because you say Saros has not been good.
Nope,
He's been average.
From last year.
Your defense has been allowing way too many high-danger chances, and that's with one of the best defensemen in the game, and Roman Josi. And you do at least have some weapons, but the problem is you don't have depth. And we're seeing, like the Blues, now that they can actually have multiple lines that they can use in a game, depth helps out this Blues team. So this team now, in my opinion, and I don't know if it's a stretch or if it's just a hot streak or if this is sustained, but you're clearing yourself from the rest of the pack in the Central Division. I think right now it's pretty obvious Minnesota's going to be going through it. Chicago and Nashville aren't going to be as good as anybody thought. And now you've got yourself, Arizona, and Winnipeg, and then you got the top 2 teams in Dallas and Colorado. And if that's the case, yeah, you're talking about a playoff consideration team, because the teams in the Pacific, minus the Anaheim Ducks, they're all out of it. So this is a position right now that you flipped with Nashville, which is a good thing, which, again, long-term, we saw this. This was the fact. Nashville was not going to be competitive. Maybe they would have gotten hot for 1 year, but they were about to go through a downturn when the Blues kind of jumped ship and said, let's start this faster.
We'll see. We'll see where this goes. I don't know if this is going to be something where the Blues end up 3rd in the division the rest of the year. We don't know. But the Blues are a lot of fun to watch right now. And that is not something we could say as recently as a week or 2 ago. This is a very different feeling team than it was at this point last year. I know that some have brought up the idea of, hey, last year you had that big winning streak. You lose eight straight games, but then you win 7 straight. It doesn't feel that way.
No.
To me. And that's not to suggest that it's more sustainable, but the streakiness of last year's team, I thought that was a fundamental flaw within that squad. This year, we haven't really seen that. It's been a little bit more topsy-turvy within games, or maybe like game to game, but it hasn't been 5 straight games of them just playing horribly the way that it was last
year. A lot of those games in that streak last year, you gave it. You said that they earned a couple of them, like that Vegas game. You said that they earned the Colorado game. You said that you earned, but there were some other games in that stretch that you were like, they might have got a little lucky there. Like they got significantly outplayed from first to third period, but yet they found a way to stay in it. This stretch that they're in right now, you might have a period that you got outplayed, but overall, from start to finish, you've been the better team, at least at 5-on-5. Special teams is where it's hurt you.
That is Alex Ferrario. He's Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up at the end of the hour, we'll get into questions and answers, so you guys can get involved. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. To do so, we'll talk to Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, coming up at 11:30. But next, I like Aaron Nola a lot. I think he should be the Cardinals' #1 target this offseason. But if this is the price that it's going to cost, maybe we should turn our attention elsewhere. We'll talk about that next here on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK, and I've got some exciting news for all the men out there. Victory Men's Health has launched a new telehealth site. This is called VictoryRx.com. That's VictoryRx.com. Men, you can go there. You'll get prescribed that ED medication that you've been looking for. They have made the process easy, so you don't have to go through a bunch of different portals, putting in the same information 17 different ways. Not with VictoryRx.com. Victory Men's Health has already treated thousands of men in their standalone location, so you're not going to some sketchy website. No, not with them. They have been giving men from all over easier access now to their #1 selling medication via VictoryRx.com. This is coming in the form of a chewable tablet. It's got active ingredients with both Viagra and Cialis, and the fact that it's a chewable tablet is going to be helpful for you. It's not going to be affected by the food or the drink that you had earlier in the day. This is going to overall impact the effectiveness of the medication. It's going to be a chewable tablet that has one dose that it's going to work for you. So go to VictoryRx.com. That's VictoryRx.com, and play hard.
They certainly seem willing for the right player to go beyond the $22 million highest salary that they have on the books right now. And those $22 million salaries are for Austin Riley and Matt Olson as part of extensions that they signed. They're not making, and I expect that if they're going to be active for Aaron Nola or Sonny Gray or whoever it might be, they'll be at least in that range, if not above.
Alongside Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. That voice you just heard was Ken Rosenthal on Foul Territory yesterday, talking about the Braves, who are reportedly interested in the top of this year's free agent pitching market. Alex, they are not alone. According to The Athletic, there are 20 different teams that need starting pitchers at the top end of the market going into this offseason. And within those 20 teams, there are like 7 to 10 that need multiple starting pitchers going into the offseason. Alex, they had a really good piece over at The Athletic earlier today. Chad Jennings wrote this, and he just went through, and it was basically a choose-your-own-adventure offseason, but he did it for all of the teams as opposed to just for the Cardinals. And he went through the supply that is available pitching-wise, the demand that is out there for pitchers, and what this is going to mean for a lot of these teams. And basically his takeaway was this. Man, there's going to be a lot of teams that leave the market this offseason feeling like, oh boy, we do not have the pitching that we came into the offseason needing.
Crap.
I know who that will be.
Yeah.
So what that typically means, if you know anything about supply and demand, and Alex, I know very little, but enough to know this. Prices go up, baby. And that's going to be the case for both the free agency market and the trade market, because teams that miss out on the free agents, guess where they're going to turn their attention to? Oh, let's go get Tyler Glasnow. Let's go talk to the Mariners, the Marlins, all of the teams that we've been talking about for the Cardinals, because they're not alone in their need for starting pitching. Everybody needs starting pitching right now. And Alex, this is where I come to the 2 teams that I believe to be the X factors this offseason in the pitching market. One is the team that you just heard about there, the Atlanta Braves. If they want to throw their weight around in the free agency market for really the first time since going through this era of Braves baseball, man, they can. They could go out there, and if they want to add Aaron Nola, Blake Snell, Sonny Gray, whoever they want, they could probably go do that. They've got the money to throw around if necessary. That would change things for a lot of teams at the top end of the market, especially the Cardinals. Another team that would fit into this criteria would be the Philadelphia Phillies. And this is where we get back to Aaron Nola. There's a great piece today by Jason Stark, who's from Philadelphia, has covered the Phillies for 20 years, and is now a national baseball analyst for both The Athletic and MLB Network. He went through what he expects the Phillies to do going into the offseason, what their plans are, right? And he wrote about what their plans are and were with Aaron Nola. He said that according to his sources within the Phillies, he believes they offered something around 6 years and $150 million to Aaron Nola. Nola
Cardinals could do that.
Nola outright rejected it. That was before the season.
Well, maybe he doesn't want to be in Philly. He's from Louisiana.
It's cold there,
He believes that Aaron Nola's side is looking for an extension somewhere around 7 years and $200 million, maybe even more than $200 million.
That was my spit take. I didn't want to really spit.
If he believes that he's going to get that, and if he really is going to get that, Alex, is that something you think the Cardinals should be doing?
No. I look, and I'm the biggest advocate for Aaron Nola. I think this is the guy you go after, not $200 million. I'm not even worried about the year side of it. Aaron Nola is not a $200 million pitcher. I know he's a guy that you'd identify as a top of the rotation arm. I know he's a guy that for the first 3 years he's going to provide you stuff that looks like an ace, maybe, but not for $200 million. I mean, Yamamoto is the guy that I was willing to go to for $200 million, and it wasn't even because of his stuff. It was more because he was 25 years old, and he's got the great stuff. If it's $200 million for Aaron Nola, then you're walking away from that and saying, well, boys, I guess you better bust out that snorkeling gear because we are not scuba diving this offseason.
Yeah, I would not be interested in a $200 million deal for Aaron Nola because I don't think he's a $200 million pitcher. There are not a lot of guys that get a $200 deal on the starting pitching market. Why? Because you have to be really good over a consistent period of time. And as I can't remember if it was Jason Stark or Jennings that put this in their piece today, I mean, you look at the guys that have gotten that, they've either won a Cy Young or they've won a World Series MVP. Guess what Nola has not done? Either of those. He's not even the number one in his own rotation right now.
I was going to say, Zach Wheeler's a $200 million pitcher more than Nola.
The listeners who don't have this in front of them, the guys that are in this criteria that T-Bone's mentioning here of $200 million, Steven Strasburg, David Price, Clayton Kershaw, Max Scherzer. Those are the guys that get this kind of money. And listen, I like Aaron Nola a lot. I've said all along, all season, Alex, we've been on the same page here. This is the guy that you target in the offseason. And the reason why is because I thought it would be, somewhere in the $25 to $30 million range for like 5 to 6 years. It seems reasonable to me. It's a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but it's pretty reasonable for a guy of his caliber. This is not that. 7 years, $30 million a year? That is no longer in the reasonable territory. I'm sorry, man, but he's not David Price. He's not Clayton Kershaw. He's not Max Scherzer. And I know that you have to adjust for inflation. Those guys didn't sign their contracts as recently as a couple of years ago, but, buddy, $200 million for a guy that's just like okay with strikeouts, for a guy that has a lot of contact quality control that he's using. I don't know. I would try to adjust my decision making accordingly if that is going to be the type of contract that he's going to command on the open market.
$200 million for him. You're in the same spot that you were going to be with Yamamoto, where you were like, well, that's the only move we're making this offseason. Or maybe you could get one more because the posting fee was part of it with Yamamoto. But regardless, I don't think Nola and one guy that's not Sonny Gray or Blake Snell makes an offseason successful. If I'm talking about 25 mil or 23 mil for Aaron Nola, then I'm back on board with this one. But as soon as you get to $30 million, as soon as you're talking $200 million, you're putting yourself in a position that you're not going to be able to make your offseason viable enough for you to be considered a contender. You're going to just be talking about, well, Nola's going to have to be awesome this year because if they lose him, then the Cardinals were able to do nothing else and their team is going to be mediocre.
And this is where I get back to what I've been talking about for a while, which is what is the least amount that they could do to make you happy for 2024? Because I think that's going to be something that we have to start wondering about. Like, what does Plan B look like? If this market explodes, and we discussed this a little bit yesterday, and Nola gets $30 million for 7 years, and somebody then turns and says, oh, well, panic move. Well, we got to get Blake Snell. He's the only other guy that we can really get on the market because Yamamoto's not coming here. The Braves say, okay, let's say Phillies bring back Nola. 7 years, $30 million a year, $210 million. They bite the bullet. They say, we got to do this. The Braves, okay, well, shoot, we thought we were going to get Nola. Where do we turn? Okay, we're gonna go get Snell. We're gonna add even more strikeout stuff at the front end of our rotation. 6 years at $30 a year, $180 million for Blake Snell. All right, boom, he's off the market. Okay, now where do we turn? The next best starting pitcher is Sonny Gray. Yamamoto's out there, but he's going to New York. Let's say he's going to the Mets, right? Gets close to $300 million from them. Sonny Gray's now out there. Is that the best guy? That's what you're going to do. This is how you end up on the trade market if you're the Cardinals. And that's where things get ugly again because now Dodgers haven't made an addition. Rangers haven't made an addition. These other teams that are out there are also searching for starting pitching, and they also have stuff that they're willing to trade to the White Sox, the Mariners, the Marlins, et cetera, to be able to get that pitching that you're looking for. So, man, woohoo! Sonny Gray and Eduardo Rodriguez starting to look a little better than it did a week ago.
Maybe. Eddie, who wants to be a Cardinal, huh? Only give you 15 mil because that's all we can afford, but St. Louis.
Kind of glad I'm not in Mo's shoes because once you get into that Plan B category, that's when I don't think the Cardinals fans will be happy with whatever Plan B is.
You know what's crappy about it? Like, if you just were willing to spend more money, you could be in these conversations. Even if we don't believe Aaron Nola is a $200 million starting pitcher, which I get, he's not. But again, this is the circumstances you put yourself in by not being able to develop properly in your system or trading away pieces that were supposed to be a part of this rotation. But the reason that we're throwing this away partially is because he's not a $200 million pitcher, but it's also because we know that this team only is going to spend $45, $50 million. And if you throw $30 million at one guy, well, now you're bleeped. If you could be an organization that says, you know what, we'd like to only spend 50, but we know our team's got to be competitive, so we might have to push this to 60 or 70.
By the way, there was a bit of news yesterday from Cleveland. No, it wasn't Shane Bieber. Cal Quantrill, one of their starters, who some in the market wanted to add to the Cardinals prior to the season.
Tanner.
Oh, no, it ain't me. He's swing and miss.
He has been DFA'd by the Cleveland Guardians. This is a guy that had some success early on in his career, and he's going to make like $6.5 million via arbitration next season. I bet you somebody will pick him up via waivers, or they'll trade for him after they work out something with the Guardians. it shouldn't be the Cardinals. This is a guy that like 2 years ago, hell, maybe even as recently as last year, I would have absolutely expected the Cardinals to go after. No swing and miss stuff, more location than it is velocity, and he is not. He's the exact opposite of what the Cardinals should be looking to acquire going into this offseason. So if you see anybody that wonders, like, hey, should Cardinals maybe go out there and get Cal Quantrill? He's previously no. Just say no. Say no. That's the answer.
Tell your friend that you're dumb. Say no. They need better than Quantrill.
Yep.
Quantrill.
However you want to say it.
Quantrill.
Quantrill, I believe.
He's a righty, though, so he's not going to be a Cardinal.
Yeah.
We
All
like lefties.
Coming up in 15 minutes,
guys.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. But next, Chris Kerber, voice of the Blues here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my dentist, 100 West Dental, just off of Manchester. Look, it is almost the end of the year, so you need to get to your dentist right now to make sure you're utilizing all of the insurance funds that you have. You don't want that money to go back to the insurance company, so why not put it towards making sure you're getting your checkup, your cleanings for your teeth? And this is the most important part about it, because 100 West Dental is all about the preventative procedure. What that means is they're doing all of the x-rays for your mouth. They're checking your teeth. They're checking your gums. They're making sure that you're going to be taken care of in the long run, not just looking at your mouth and saying, yep, teeth good to go, no cavities, walking away. I had that type of dentist in the past, missed a tumor, lost 7 teeth. So get into 100 West Dental now, and when you go, mention my name and get $1,000 off an Invisalign package. What better way to say Merry Christmas than with some white teeth? 100westdental.com or 636-585-0100. Get with the best at 100 West.
Tara Hendrickson USA Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues beat the Tampa Bay Lightning last night 5-0, and they'll be back in action when they take on the San Jose Sharks later this week. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff. Find a road shop 24/7 at londoff.com, londoffAutoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Happy to go out to the 101 ESPN hotline to be joined by Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, joining us after the Blues had a really nice victory last night against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Kerbs, we appreciate the time as always, man. How you doing today?
Doing good. Looking forward to getting out to California and keeping this roll going.
Absolutely. Kerbs, let's start with the obvious from last night, and that's Torey Krug, who had two of the better passes that you'll see in an individual game from a defenseman, and this is just a continuation of his improved play from what we saw a year ago. What has stood out to you on the changes that we've seen this year in Torey Krug's game?
Well, I don't know if it's so much changes. I think the biggest not so much to his game, BK. I think it's the team game. You know, like things got so out of whack last year that individuals didn't look good because the team game wasn't good. And now the team game, defending in their own zone, how they're moving the puck, the forwards coming back, the defensive awareness of every forward up and down the ice, you name it, has been better. And with that, guys are then able to play to their skills better. Mike Weber said something to me before game one in Dallas this year. He said, you know, players are always looking, and the argument that some players may have about a system that's being employed is that they want to be creative. It's a lack of creativity when you structure it. And he goes, it's actually not the case. He goes, if you have really good structure, you've got all the room in the world for guys to be creative because you understand that your teammate's going to be where they need to be. And if there's a moment that you've got an opportunity in front of you, take it. And I think that really summarizes what we're seeing from a guy like Torey Krug. Everything was built team-wise this season, very defensively from the start. And now that they're getting more comfortable in that structure, the offense is starting to go. And then once they started feeling the puck a little bit and getting some success, then you start to see confidence grow and put all that together, and it starts to look really good, doesn't it?
Kerb, speaking of that structure, it does really look good, and specifically at even strength. And since November 3rd, the Blues have only allowed 7 even strength goals, and it's not just the defensemen. It seems to be the forwards being involved also.
Yeah, it's got to be the forwards. I mean, the forwards coming back, you can't defend with 2 guys in the zone. You've got to defend with all 5. And there were a couple times last night, Alex, as we were talking about, when the puck was kind of bouncing around, you eventually saw all 5 guys from the top of the circle down to the goal and within the dots. And when you saw that, it just made it very hard for Tampa to get to the inside. And then Jordan Bennington was square to every puck. I mean, so it's so. I mean, well, how many times last year did we talk about the forwards?
Yeah.
Right. And not coming back to help the defense out. And what a difference it makes now when you start to see that.
Chris Kerber is the voice of the Blues. He's joining us here on 101 ESPN. Kerbs, as I look at the time on ice last night, it jumps out to me when you're especially looking at the even strength time. Every single forward on the roster played at least 11 minutes last night, and there was not a single forward on the roster, at even strength at least, that played more than 18 minutes in a game where you ended up winning 5-0. I understand that the score certainly plays into that a bit. Last year, we talked a lot about how they did not have a fourth-line identity the last couple of years, really. Is this team starting to get into a mode where they can roll 4 lines continuously without having to worry about who's on the ice?
Oh, I think they absolutely are getting into that mode. And I think absolutely they're getting into that mode. And I think another big key of that, a huge key of that, happens to be the fact that this Blues team has been so good, Brandon, discipline-wise, that especially the last few games, you haven't had a whole lot of special teams one way or the other. Yeah, okay, in Colorado, I apologize. You did have the power play in there, and that lessened the time of the third line. But even the game before that, it really wasn't very much in there. So I think it's one of those situations where if the Blues can continue to stay disciplined, you're looking at a scenario where you can keep that balanced ice time. And the way the fourth line's playing, my goodness, the way the fourth line is playing means that Craig Berube can count on these guys just about in any situation. I mean, they've been fantastic.
Speaking of that fourth line, Curbs.
Curbs, are you at a ATM right now?
No, grocery store.
No, I'm sitting behind somebody at an ATM right now.
Damn. That sounded like, no, it sounded like a grocery store scanner. I just thought Curbs was really good at
I know that anyway.
I just thought Curbs was really good at grocery shopping, scanning items, just like boom, 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 boom.
No, I'm behind this. It may be one of the biggest ATMs I've seen in a while. This thing is doggone loud.
The person in front of you is probably turning around looking at him like, why are you talking about me at an ATM, sir?
Yeah, I guess I could roll up my window.
No, keep it down. It makes it more uncomfortable.
If I could name the beep.
Name the beep. What a great name. Speaking of that fourth line, Curbs, hold on. ATM checkout. 3,
I'm trying to,
2, 1.
I'm not even
I think I've got his PIN number now. It's 3442.
Just send your card over to us.
I'll roll up my window here.
No, Curbs, on the fourth line, and I know you've talked a lot about this because, like, the hit statistic is such a fickle one when it comes to the off-ice officials that put it out there. But the physical presence has been there, whether it's been the fourth line, defensemen. They've been separating guys from pucks a lot more recently. Do you feel like that's having an impact on the game?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, they're relentless, and it's no coincidence that it happens to be. Absolutely no coincidence that it's got Sundqvist on that line, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's just been fantastic, and they're following it. Jake Neighbors has gotten very comfortable in that role, and Jake is doing a great job of just playing that role. And you know, as the coaches have said, look. This is a guy that, without a shred of doubt, can play up the lineup, right? But right now, there's really no reason or no need for him to play up the lineup because they've got everything else kind of where they want it to be. So they're perfectly happy in the role that Jake is in right now, and he's very comfortable in it. And you can see him even to the end of the last game. He's fired up. Guys are barking at him, and he's chirping back at him. So I think it's a terrific scenario going on with that fourth line where not only are they checking and separating guys from the puck, but they're starting to create more of that zone time that's leaving. It's leaving the next line in spot. Now you got sirens coming past me.
Curbs,
you guys are getting a whole.
Curbs,
you're getting like a whole audio. What do we call it? Sensory show here today.
Yeah, did the guy in front of you like call the cops because he heard us talking about his ATM number?
Oh, that's an ambulance going down Clayton Road there. I'm heading on my way to the airport there, fellas, when I'm through with this line here. No, like they're just doing a good job of leaving the next line in a good spot. And they got that kind of skill to do it. And that's huge. I mean, it's a big difference from last year.
Chris Kerber, we will enjoy you on the call for the Blues versus the San Jose Sharks tomorrow night. Enjoy getting a good look at that team, Curbs. There's a lot of talent over there, and I hear things are going extraordinarily well in San Jose. So enjoy the game.
Yeah, we better. Yeah, let's not take it for granted. They still have managed to beat some teams 5 times. So take care of business and find 2 points and get out of there fast.
Yeah, they're 2
you
wins
guys.
this year.
Have a good one. We'll talk to you next week.
See you, Curbs.
2-1 win at home against Philly, 3-2 win at home against Edmonton. I feel like that tells you more about those teams than it does against San Jose because other games on this schedule include a 10-1 loss at home against Vancouver, followed up by a 10-2 loss at home against Pittsburgh. 20-3 over 3 nights, 2 teams at home.
So what you're saying is you're not buying into the Blues unless they put up 10 goals tomorrow night. Is that what I'm hearing?
I mean, you should allow 2 or fewer goals in this game. That's for sure.
This will be a Joe Hofer game, so hopefully he picks up his second shutout of the season.
This team's embarrassingly bad. I saw quotes the other day from Chris Greer. Is that it?
Mike Greer.
Damn it, I always do that. Mike Greer, their general manager.
It's his brother.
He's talking about Hurdle and whether or not they're going to be able to keep him. He was like, yeah, it's hard, but We think he's going to hang on there with us.
No.
See through this rebuild. Nah. Greer. He ain't seeing this thing through, man. I don't think he's going to be around much
He and
longer.
Logan Couture are going to be like, yeah,
I
we
love
won
the
out.
fact that the Sharks had a GM meeting where he came down and talked to the team. What are you saying to that team? This is going how I planned it.
Yeah. Hey, guys, we're going for the first overall pick. Unfortunately for us, we're a year
You guys
too late.
are doing it well.
They are embarrassingly bad.
Yeah.
Like, they are aggressively tanking.
I mean, they're doing what the Arizona Coyotes have done for the last 5 or 6 years.
I mean, they weren't even this
I think
bad.
this is
Coyotes
worse.
were this bad.
I don't know, dude. This might be worse.
Those
they might
Coyotes.
be the worst team that I've seen.
Those Coyotes teams, like in the initial like rebuild stage, they were putting out their dudes that either should have been retired or guys that were everyday AHLers. Like San Jose's bad right now, but I also think we forget how bad those Arizona Coyotes teams were. They're the new tanking team in the NHL. Arizona is now coming out of it, and guess what? San Jose is going to be a money dump destination as the salary cap rises over the next couple of years, and this is what teams
The problem
benefit
is they
from.
can't be. They've already got 2 salaries on the books. They've only got
They'll
one
get
more
rid of those
slot.
salaries.
The retained salaries?
Yeah, they'll get rid of some of them.
What do you mean?
Oh, I'm sorry. They'll be
They can't do anything because they've retained $2.5 million from Brent Burns and $1.5 million from Erik Karlsson for like the next few seasons. You can only retain 3.
No, but they'll take on teams with
like
they'll take
actual
on players. Yeah, like they'll either take on dead LTIR caps, or what they'll do is they'll just take on massive contracts like Arizona did. Arizona had Chris Pronger on their like salary cap for like however many years. So Philadelphia had enough money to do some stuff. So that's just what this. There's always one team in the NHL that goes into this full blown rebuild, and Mike Greer told everybody that that's what's going to be happening over the next couple of years.
Chris in charge. With Alex and T-Bone on BK coming up next.
Maybe.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. Let's start with this from the 314. T-Bone, what'd you think of your Illini last night? Big game, tough loss.
Yeah.
ILLLOSE.
Wow.
Spelled it right, correct?
I think shooting's going to be an issue for him like it was last year. I think there are two guys that can really kind of solidify the floor for them. Because everybody's going to talk about Hawkins and Shannon. And look, those guys got to play well. Hawkins, let's pick it up after 3 games. This is embarrassing. Those two have to play well for this team to win. The guys that are going to determine what the ceiling can truly be and kind of raise the floor for them is Rodgers and Goody. And I thought Goody played well last night. Rodgers was okay, did a good job attacking the paint, and then had a couple of turnaround shots there as well. But I don't know. Like, watching them, I feel like it's a lot of what I saw last year, where it is, all right, this team's good. They don't have a ton of shooting, so they're going to have to rely on just attacking you in the basket, and they're going to have to be good defensively.
Who's this? Damask?
Yeah, he's solid. You know, it didn't really like raise much for me. You know,
he feels important to this team, and I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but he is going to be an important key factor for them. Shooter, spreads the floor, got a little bit of size. He's somebody that if he is able to become a real piece to this puzzle, that opens things up for them offensively, because it's a spot in the offense that's been missing over the last couple of
They
seasons.
need him, or Goody's the other one. He came off the bench last night. They need them to basically go into that, who was it, Myers role last year, where he wasn't a great three-point shooter.
Him very much.
Myers?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't mind Myers. He was like a solid three-point shooter that was okay. But he was a guy that could get hot and just like turn the tide of a game. And they need someone to take that role. I think Goody's probably more that guy. But it's possible Domas could do that too.
It'll be interesting to see where that ends up going. They're a good team.
Yeah.
That's a tough game.
They'll be a tournament team. But they'll probably be right around where they were last year, which I think was a 9 seed.
I don't know what to make of Mizzou. This is a team that has a lot of guys, and they've got some talent. I don't know that they have a go-to player.
I was going to say, I feel like after watching just a couple of games, they seem like a team that's still searching for their starting 5 that they trust.
Absolutely. And like even more than that, they're searching for who are we going to in critical situations. And last year they kind of did it by committee early on in the season. Then eventually it became okay, this is Kobe's team. Kobe Brown is our best player, and the second best player is Demoy Hodge. And those two guys are going to be the driving factors behind how far this team is capable of going. I think so far it's been Sean East, and he's been way better than I expected him to be. But after that, I just don't know. I don't know who the second go-to guy is going to be for this team, and they need to find that player. So I'm a little more skeptical on Mizzou than I was expecting to be at this point in the season. But at this point last year, we also weren't very high on Mizzou. They were struggling against some of the directional opponents to figure out who they were. Game against Minnesota will be a big one for them. I'm curious to see how that ends up going.
That team's kind of bad.
They're okay. It's like a 50-50 proposition for Mizzou. So it'd be nice to see them get a win in that one and get back on the right side.
It's going to be a miserable year, isn't it?
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 217. Guys, what do you think Brady Cook's ceiling is over the next couple of seasons? Well, first of all, still has 2 years of eligibility, which is interesting. He's potentially going to be around for a while if he wants to be at Mizzou.
Take that, T-Bone.
I think his ceiling is, I'm trying to think of a good comparison for it, but a really solid but unspectacular college quarterback.
Max Duggan. Would that be a comp?
Yeah.
That was the one at TCU last year, right?
Kind of similar to that. Like, if he's surrounded by a good supporting cast, and right now he is, and there's no reason to believe that that's going to change in the foreseeable future, I have no reason to believe that he can't be a really good quarterback. I think this year he's been really good. He's had a couple of moments where interceptions at the wrong time, but otherwise, like, this has been a really good season for Brady Cook, and I think he can get a little better than this.
He can be always a top 5 quarterback in the SEC with a good cast around him. He'll never be like the top guy. Like, he'll never be at the Daniels level where he's clearly the number 1 quarterback. But he can always hang around. He can always hang in there. And if you say you got a top 5 quarterback in the SEC and you got weapons around him, you're in a really good spot if you're the Missouri Tigers. So Duggan was the first name that popped into my mind, because when you say he's got 2 years of eligibility if he chooses that, I think Duggan had a year of eligibility last year, and he said, no, I'm good. Or maybe it was Bennett. I think it was Duggan. And he said, no, I'm good. And I went, oh, dude, I would stay in college. You're not going to do anything in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm totally with
I
you.
don't see him making an NFL team.
No, I don't either.
Who?
Cook.
I mean, to be fair, if DeVito can, Brady
Yeah,
Cook
I mean,
can.
it's possible he could be a backup somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think that's totally out
Not
of...
drafted, though.
I don't know.
Really?
I mean, there's bad quarterbacks.
But you got to have
man.
okay. Look, you got to have one more year of this before you're in that conversation.
Sure.
Like this year
Yeah,
isn't the
of
year
course.
that's like, let's get Brady Cook.
No, totally agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you there. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. If you guys want to get involved in the show throughout the day today, that is the place to do so. You can always watch us on YouTube as well, youtube.com/101ESPNSTL, and we'll get to more likely to happen in about 15 minutes or so. But Alex, we continue our Choose Your Own Adventure Cardinals offseason edition coming up next. I call this one the Nothing But Nola. We'll discuss it next here on 101 ESPN.
Thank you. I have big news, probably the biggest. I have received a pardon.
But how?
Well, it's very simple. You take $29 and you ask for the credit pardon at Frank Lita Mitsubishi in the automotive outlet in Bridgeton.
And there's no gag order on this event. Every vehicle is 29 down. $29 at Frank Lita Mitsubishi.
Well, we love those new Outlanders with the third row seating.
The credit pardon. If you bring home $350 a week, you could get up to $25,000 in credit
25 grand.
with just $29.
Get 0% financing on new Outlanders or 3.9 for 72 months on Outlander and Eclipse Cross.
Plus, no payments for 90 days. So grab $29 and get to Frank Lita Mitsubishi.
In the automotive outlet in Bridgeton.
YesLita.com.
It's a beautiful thing.
New 23 Outlander, 29.5, 29 down, $530 a month for 60 months at 2.99% APR, plus tax, tag title deferment to qualified buyers.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis. 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So, Alex, we're doing an off-season choose-your-own-adventure for the Cardinals. The reason why is because I'm always fascinated by what the first move does to the next 2, 3, 4, 5 moves for an offseason, right? If the Cardinals go out there and the first move that they make is signing Blake Snell, well, that changes what you need as your number 2 starter. I think it puts more of an importance on finding a guy that can give you innings out of that number 2 starter role. If the first move instead is, trading for Dylan Cease, well, that also has an impact on what you can do for the second and third starters. Now you've got more money available. So I want to go through a number of different options, number of different routes as to what the Cardinals could do to give us a better idea of, okay, what do we want them to do? Because it's easy to say, I want him to go sign Aaron Nola. Okay, but what does that mean for the rest of what you're able to do? I want him to go sign Blake Snell. Okay, but what does that mean for the rest of your offseason? So we're going through these one by one. I've got a few different scenarios that we'll go through this week. Yesterday's scenario was signing Blake Snell as the top-end pitcher that you end up acquiring. Then the second thing that I mentioned, trading Carlson and Graceffo for Tyler Glasnow. So you've got some real swing and miss stuff at the top end of your rotation here, but it's risky to build around those two guys with Snell and Glasnow. Then continuing from there, you trade Alec Burleson for Paul Blackburn, sign Sean Manaea, and you trade Tyler O'Neill for a mid-tier reliever. So you probably didn't get the relief pitcher that you were looking for, but you got Snell, you got Glasnow, you got Blackburn, you've got 3 starters that can help you, Sean Manaea, who's going to fill in some of those innings. I asked on Twitter for people to vote on this. What grade would you give that offseason? 41% of the votes came in on an A. 41% gave it a B. So the vast majority of people pretty happy with Snell and Glasnow as the headliners for an offseason. Then it was 12% C, 5% said, that's a failure. Complete failure of an offseason. Today's Choose Your Own Adventure, I like to call scenario 2, nothing but Nola. Alex, the reason why I'm calling it that is because this scenario is you signed Aaron Nola, but you gave him a boatload of money.
So you're getting nothing but Nola.
Essentially.
Good.
You signed Aaron Nola to a 7-year deal worth $210 million. It sounds like this is pretty similar to what he's looking for right now, and you jumped the market, and he was your first option this offseason. While everybody else is focused on Ohtani and Yamamoto, you go get the money to Aaron Nola. So you got your guy. That obviously has a significant effect of what else you can do the rest of the offseason. You continue by bringing back Michael Wacha, 2-year, $32 million contract. So you've got Nola, Wacha, Michaelis, Matz, fill-in starter number 5. You trade Tyler O'Neill again for a mid-tier reliever because we're getting rid of him.
Woohoo! Yeah,
and
this
you
is
sign,
one that never changes.
Yeah, there's one thing that's just a copy-paste to every offseason. You sign Hector Neris to a 2-year deal worth $15 million. If you're not familiar with his work, he's the reliever that was with the Astros. Very good, legit swing and miss stuff. Got some velocity as well. Has been good for them. He's had ups and downs, but welcome to being a reliever.
15 mil total, right?
Yep.
So 7.5 each year?
Yep.
Okay.
So your offseason, you added Aaron Nola, Michael Wacha, you added reliever, leverage reliever in Neris, and you trade Tyler O'Neill for a guy that's going to fit into your 6th or 7th inning mix. How do you feel about that offseason, Alex?
Can I add one more?
Nope.
Does it work for the salary?
Budget's over.
Can I trade Carlson for Manoah?
Nope.
This is your money.
Wow, this sucks then. I'm giving it a C. I mean, I'm sorry, and I've been the one that's pushed back on the, maybe you could get by with Zach Thompson as the 5th starting pitcher and, sign some low-level guy who could be the 6th or hope that the depth actually fills in for you. But having Nola and acting as Michael Wacha as the number 2 for you, or Michaelis as the number 2 and Wacha as the number 3, you're putting yourself in a tough spot because 1, you got to hope that Michael Wacha rebounds. 2, you've got to know that Aaron Nola is going to pitch like a Cy Young pitcher from start to finish. And 3, you are relying way too heavily on the back end of that rotation with Steven Matz and Zach Thompson. And if one of them doesn't work, now we're talking Matthew Liberatore. So I love the bullpen additions. I like the idea of a Hector Neris, but yeah, I think I'm out on this one. I'm going to give this one a C.
Yeah, this is why if this market for Nola gets into that $200 million range, and it is going to be a potential 7-year deal, which it sounds like he's looking for, the Cardinals need to be out. I'm with Alex. I think this is a C of an offseason. And I get it. You're getting a number 1 guy that's going to eat a ton of innings in Aaron Nola, but there are some serious concerns with some of the numbers for Aaron Nola. His strikeout percentage has gone down the last 4 seasons. So I don't think he's a $200 million pitcher, but now the rotation's light because now you're going with Michaelis as the number 2, and you're relying on a bounce back from Miles Michaelis. Now I've got Michael Wacha, who is probably going to miss 10 starts. That is pretty much a given. The last 3 years, he's made 23 starts. 3 years ago, had like 29 appearances, but 23 starts. So you know he's probably going to miss around 10 starts. Okay, well, now I got to figure out who's going to fill those 10 starts because it's not Zach Thompson because he's in the rotation right now. And what does Zach Thompson look like if he's starting 30 games as a number 5? Oh, and I didn't even mention how Matt's is a high volatile starter as well because you need to be planning on him making 20 starts. There is not enough certainty in this rotation for my liking. I don't mind the bullpen addition of Neris and whoever you get in this trade for O'Neill. Sure. I have serious concerns about this rotation. I don't think it's good enough. I don't think you've gotten a clear number 2 to slot ahead of Michaelis. And not only did you not get a clear number 2, you got another volatile starter in Michael Wacha that deals with injuries.
How would you feel if instead of Wacha, you ended up with one of Sonny Gray or Eduardo Rodriguez?
A lot better about it.
I feel better about that one.
Because you're adding money, like they would have to spend more for that number 2 starter to improve from Wacha to one of those guys. But more years on Eduardo Rodriguez, certainly, and more money on an AAV than on Sonny Gray.
That would be, in my opinion, an A offseason. Because you got your guy, sure you overpaid, but you got your number 1. You've got the guy who is a obvious upgrade over Miles Michaelis, whether it's Sonny Gray or Eduardo Rodriguez. Your 1 through 3 looks really good, and you upgraded your bullpen with a high leverage arm. That's an A.
Let me ask this a different way. Kind of similar, but a little different. Who is the worst starter that the Cardinals could acquire in that second tier that you would feel comfortable with if it was the only other signing other than Aaron Nola that they add to the rotation? So you get Nola as your number 1, and then you add pitcher X as your number 2 starter. Who's the lowest that you'd go? Because, like, if they add Nola and Yamamoto, everybody's happy. Nola, Snell, everybody's happy. Jordan Montgomery.
Bill DeWitt's not happy.
Jordan Montgomery, are we happy with that as the number 2 in this scenario?
Yeah, I would be.
No.
Sonny Gray.
I'd be happy.
Yeah.
Eduardo Rodriguez.
Yep.
I think I'd be happy.
Marcus Stroman.
No. You could cut off at Eduardo Rodriguez for me.
I'd say no.
Imanaga.
I'd be happy with Imanaga.
As the second best starter?
I think so. I think a lot of people seem to really like his stuff, so I'll bite on the reports.
And then after that, it's Giolito, Wacha, Lugo, Flaherty, Kershaw. All these guys feel like they're fitting into the same criteria as a Michael Wacha, or worse to me. So that's why I wanted to use Wacha as the placeholder here, because I think it shows, like, okay, this is where the cutoff might be. Of, are you comfortable with this where you are going a little light as your number 2 starter? But this is a scenario where you get your number 1. You do get a clear-cut top-end starter, and I think it's a realistic scenario, honestly, going into the offseason of the Cardinals coming out and saying, listen, we had to overextend to get the number 1 starter. We're not comfortable with this at all, but we had to do it. And so what that meant is we had to cut back a little bit to be able to find a guy that we feel comfortable with as a mid-tier starter, even if he's not a legitimate number 2 in Michael Wacha. And then we also wanted to make sure we acquired a high-leverage reliever. Neris could be that guy that they end up going to. Might be somebody else. I don't know. He's just a placeholder name here. I think this is if they go to the number 1 starter market, a more than reasonable and a potentially highly realistic scenario for their offseason. I would give it a B, because you did get the guy. You got the number 1 starter. And I do think that it is likely that there will be mid-tier starters available at the deadline that you could then go out and acquire if you needed one by the time that we get to the deadline.
But can you make it to the deadline and be a competitive team with Nola and Michaelis as the 2 guys that you're relying on?
I think so. I think sometimes we overestimate how great rotations are going into the season. I think what the Cardinals have been lacking is a number 1. I think they have really missed having a guy that is a stopper over the last few years. And they also have a lack of depth. So you get you've got guys that profile as 3s in the middle, but you're missing the front end and the back end. If you go get Nola, I think it helps you to get to the deadline to allow you the opportunity to then trade for the pitcher that you need.
Coming off of this year from Nola, and look, I understand. Teams don't look at just the previous year. I probably put more into it than teams do. Do you feel like he's a stopper? I don't. And look, I've been saying all offseason. I don't think Nola's a 1. I think he's more of a 2, to where if you added a Sonny Gray behind him, I can squint and see Nola as a 1. I don't view him as a stopper. It's hard for me to look at a guy that has his strikeout percentage coming down over the last 4 years.
But there's not a lot of stoppers in the game right now.
I agree with that. I think there's a handful, and I think
Yeah, but
Snell
guys
can
that
be
you
a stopper.
develop into stoppers.
Yamamoto can be a stopper. And if you don't have a true stopper, you need two guys that I can squint at and say, okay, maybe they can stop it. This rotation that was just built here in this scenario, they might be able to win the NL Central.
I think they go about it differently. Like, that's the thing. I think with Blake Snell, I'm so glad both of these guys are available this offseason because I think they presented a unique opportunity to be able to discuss the value of very different types of starting pitchers. Because Blake Snell is a stopper in that he's going to give you 5 innings and the other team's going to really struggle to score within those 5 innings. But if you don't have a good enough bullpen, it does leave you light there. And now I've got to cover 4 innings at the back end of my pin to be able to find a way to complete that game. Aaron Nola, even if he goes, let's say he goes 7 innings and gives up 3 earned runs, it's like a 4.2 ERA over the course of the season. If you get 7 innings out of your starting pitcher and he gives up 3 earned runs, you should win that baseball game. Like, regularly. That should be a game that you feel comfortable that you are going to go out there and win. And so Aaron Nola, when you look at the ERA, and this is where I do think our mind sometimes plays tricks on us of how good a pitcher is or is not, his wins above replacement is second in Major League Baseball over the last 3 years. Second. A lot of that is accumulated through the innings in which he is out there. So over the course of a regular season, if you have Aaron Nola throwing those 6th and 7th innings, where Blake Snell would otherwise be out of the game, he's doing so instead of whoever the worst relievers are coming out of your bullpen. So is it more valuable to have Blake Snell giving you those 5 innings and then having to go to the underbelly of your bullpen there? Or is it more valuable to have Aaron Nola, who might give up an extra run every game than Blake Snell does, but he's giving you those 2 extra innings where you don't have to go to the bullpen there? For me, given what this team's bullpen looks like right now, I think my answer is I would rather go to Aaron Nola in that spot. But I do think it's a philosophical question of which one is more valuable in your mind. And I think both cases have reasonable reasons to believe that they're correct.
And the reason I raised that question was because, I mean, you're going into a year in which you're going to plan on Michaelis being the number 2 for you. It doesn't feel like a rotation that would scare you, thinking in hindsight of, okay, you see the Cardinals coming into town on a 3-game set, and you're going to face Nola, Michaelis, and Waka. That doesn't sound like a rotation that would be feared across baseball. And I understand what you're saying of rotations change across time. Well, those guys aren't changing. Those guys, that's your top 3, and I don't think that's a good enough top 3, honestly. And I just don't view Nola. I understand what you're saying about the...
Really, this is a Nola discussion then.
Yeah.
Because what you're really saying is you shouldn't pay Nola.
And not only that, but I think when Mo says, like, we're looking for starter, and we'll go from there, my assumption is it should be starter that slots in ahead of Michaelis and starter that slots in ahead of Michaelis, and Michaelis is the 3.
And that's where I think that if the market goes in a way that we seem to believe that it might right now, I don't think that's going to be possible for them unless they go to the trade market.
And this is where then what I would do, and I know, like, I'm basically creating my own adventure now.
Hey, that's the game.
I'm writing my own book. I would then in that case go, okay, I don't want to pay Nola this money, because now I've got Nola's the 1, Michaelis is the 2, and I'm squinting at the 1 and squinting at the 2. I would do what you were saying about Snell, where I would go get him. I've got 5 innings, and then I would load up the bullpen to get there. So that way I can cover what you were talking about, where there's more innings to cover in the bullpen, but the bullpen is deeper now.
But that feels like you also can't survive an entire season going that route.
I think you can, because I think, and maybe because you know me, as much as I love the long ball, I also love swing and miss. I think Snell's more of a stopper than Nola. But and then that's when I'm more willing to go to Mike Squint and have Michaelis as the 2 and Walk as the 3.
But what you want to do feels like you could survive in the postseason, and that feels like how you do it. But to get to the postseason, 100%. That's not the roster that I would want.
And this is where it gets really hard, is it's a different game in the postseason, man. It's a completely different game. And so are you building a team that can get to the postseason, or are you building a team that can get through the postseason, and can those two things coexist simultaneously? That's what the Cardinals have to figure out this offseason when it comes to their pitching, because if we're talking about stoppers, if we're talking about number 1 starters, let's put it this way. I like the way you framed it, T-Bone. If we're talking about a rotation that you fear when they get into town, I kind of agree that Nola's not that guy. I think Yamamoto could be. I have no idea. I've watched the guy pitch once, so it's not like I can sit here and be like, yeah, that's the guy. He's going to be fear-inducing. I don't know. Snell, I think, has some of that. I think that's the only guy on the market, though, that induces a legitimate fear into the opposition. I don't think there's any other pitcher that is currently available. Monty doesn't do that. Sonny Gray doesn't do that. Eduardo Rodriguez doesn't do that. Stroman doesn't do that. None of the other pitchers on the free agent market, not named Blake Snell, induce fear into the opposition. And even if you go to the trade market, I think it's just Tyler Glasnow and Dylan Cease that even have the ability to do that. Like, I like Logan Gilbert a lot. Are you afraid of Logan Gilbert when he comes to town? I don't think so. He's a really good starting pitcher, but I put him more into the Aaron Nola criteria than I do into the Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow criteria, right? So there's like 2 guys that you could acquire this offseason reasonably that would be fearful for the opposition. I almost feel like we have to grade on a curve because of that. Because if you don't want Snell because you're reasonably, I think, afraid of his walk rate and his lack of innings, and if you don't want to go give up Nolan Gorman plus Ivan Herrera, which I also think is pretty reasonable for a guy like Dylan Cease, well, then you can't upgrade your rotation in a way that makes it fearful for the opposition, and that's how you end up with Aaron Nola or one of these other guys.
So I agree with that grading on a curve. The thing is, though, is I think it would be different if we were talking about Snell as getting this big contract and not Nola. Because if we were saying Snell's getting the deal that we just talked about, 7 years at $210 million, yeah, that's fearful because of what we're talking about and the way he walks the world.
What's that point for you with him?
5 years?
I'd say 5 or 6 years around that 150 mark, I think is where I would be.
25?
Like, that's where I would draw the line. And that's why I think, like, if Nola is getting $200 million, this is why I become suddenly fearful of him, is I don't think he's a true number one stopper. I think that there are some signs that are a little worrisome for me, and I understand what you're saying about the ERA, and I understand the argument for innings. I really do. But I can say Michaelis is my innings guy, and then I can get a guy that has more volatility and has more swing and miss.
Don't you need more than one innings guy, though?
I don't like who's a team that has 2 innings guys. That would be my counterpoint.
Philly, but
Atlanta.
Well, they did.
Yeah.
I don't think Atlanta does. Like, their number one guy is Strider, and he's not an innings guy. Morton's not an innings guy.
What would you consider to be an innings guy at this point?
Like,
the other thing, like, are we talking about 180
like,
plus?
consistently, like, around 185 beyond.
So last year, the teams, it's kind of hard to do this on the fly, but teams that had multiple pitchers that ended up throwing at least 180 innings. Milwaukee? No.
You say Burns is the only guy. Like, the only 2 teams that I would think probably had this.
Milwaukee has it. It's just they were injured all season. Because,
Yeah,
they have Woodruff and
Arizona had 2 with
Kelly
Zach
and
Allen and
What about
Merrill
Houston?
Kelly. Houston had 1. Just Framber Valdez is throwing more than
Verlander
105,
didn't get to that
75
point.
When
innings.
Verlander got there.
So there's probably like 2 teams. Philly,
Toronto, they
Arizona.
had 3 of them.
Holy crap.
Gossman, Bassett, and Barrios.
Oh, yeah. What about Seattle?
Seattle had 3 of them. Castillo, Gilbert, and Kirby. Philly had 2 of them with Wheeler and Nola. But yeah, I mean, in the National League specifically, there's not a lot of them.
Yeah.
It's basically.
But
Arizona.
I think that's how you set
They
yourself
ended up
above
in
the
World
rest.
Series.
Yeah. But again, and maybe it's just me and the $200 million. I can't look at Nola and go, I can't believe. I'm truly baffled that we have had so many conversations about him getting $200 million. I get it about there's the supply and the demand. I understand that. I'm sorry, he is not a $200 million pitcher. And if I'm stretching myself for a guy that I don't view as a true stopper, that then pulls away from what I can add in terms of whether it be the bullpen or to that number 2 spot, that I think if you overextend yourself for Nola, you put yourself in a worse spot overall.
What would you rather do, though? Because to me, there's not an available via trade or free agency stopper. Like, there's not stoppers available in the game today that you can realistically acquire. What would you rather stretch yourself on? The $200 million for Aaron Nola or getting rid of Nolan Gorman? Because those are your options if you want to get a legit guy.
Potentially.
Yeah.
You're not getting a guy with Donovan and Newt Bar.
Hold that thought.
No, I don't want to do that.
Maybe that'll be a part of our scenario tomorrow. Foreshadowing.
Oh, nothing but Nola. Did you just? I just came up with a great idea, and you just said hold on to that till tomorrow.
That's
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Scenario tomorrow.
Look, I don't have a lot of these very
Our
often.
defense, we don't know what the scenarios are.
No, I know. Tomorrow's scenario, I think, is a fun one. I think you guys will like it. I don't know.
I had fun with this one and just crapping on it.
Well,
Yeah.
BK realizes we're past time, so
We are well past time.
because Tanner wouldn't stop talking about the
15
stopper.
minutes or so. Why is this stretch different for the Blues than it was last year? We'll get into that coming up at 12:30. But next, you give us 2 scenarios. We'll tell you which one's more likely to happen here on 101 ESPN.
Blues hockey is on 101 ESPN. Get the inside scoop on and off the ice with the Last Minute Blues podcast with Jamie Rivers and Donnie Fandango of 105.7 The Point. Blues opinion, talk, and speculation. It's what we do. Download the Last Minute Blues podcast on the 101 mobile app or at 101ESPN.com.
He's already got 2 goals. He's looking for a third. He passes the scotch, finds the bourbons, reaches high. He scores! If you've got a hat, chuck it at your radio. It's a hat trick.
Curbs, you really don't have to do that every time.
Oh, yeah, I know. I just get so excited about this hat trick special at Randall's. You walk into any of Randall's 5 locations, look for the items with the blue dot, pick any 3, and save 10%.
Okay, well, I guess you're right. The hat trick special at Randall's is pretty awesome.
He walks up, puts the 3 bottles at the register.
Curbs, seriously?
Sorry.
Hey, it's Kerry for Window Nation. The temperatures are dropping rapidly. It's turning bone-chillingly cold outside, and energy costs are on the rise. If you have old, drafty windows, your furnace is working harder than ever to keep your family warm, why pay unnecessarily high energy bills? Window Nation can help keep you and your family warm all season long. Window Nation's energy-efficient windows are specifically designed for climate changes and will help keep the cold air out while lowering your monthly energy costs by up to 30%. Speaking of savings, this month only, Window Nation is offering 0% interest for 5 years. That's 60 months interest-free. And get 2 free windows with every 2 you buy. Now is the time to protect your family from the elements, lower your energy costs, and upgrade the look and feel of your home. Call Window Nation today. Get 0% interest for 5 years, plus 2 free windows with every 2 you buy. Offer only good this month. Call the company over 200,000 families trust with their home. Window Nation. Call 866-90-NATION or go online at windownation.com. That's 866-90-NATION or windownation.com.
What's more likely to happen? They'll figure it out. BK and Ferrario's most likely to happen.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for more likely to happen. You give us a scenario, we'll tell you which one's more likely here on 101 ESPN. Alex, let's start with this one. More likely to happen. The Cardinals sign one of the top 3 starters this offseason, Snell, Nola, or Yamamoto. Or the St. Louis Blues make a significant in-season addition to their roster prior to the deadline.
I'm going to say the Blues make a significant addition because I don't think the Cardinals are making any of those moves anymore. I'm starting to wonder if Alek Manoah trade is going to be the best thing that the Cardinals pull off this offseason, which is very underwhelming if he doesn't pan out.
Trade for Manoah, Tyler Glasnow, and
Logan Gilbert.
No, he'd be too good.
An upside guy. Who else could they get that's like
Edward Cabrera.
There you go.
Oh,
that's it. That's the offseason.
Hey, I like that, the rotation, though.
Cardinals fans
got a lot of swing and miss stuff if those guys are available.
Yeah, I was going to say, man, if those guys are good, you're scary.
And I think I was in attendance when I saw Cabrera pitch in town this year. Holy crap.
You want to talk about Blake Snell's walk issues.
It was Ponce de Leon 2.0, but with way better stuff.
Poor Ponce. I say the Blues one, though, because if there is a scenario, I could see the Blues finding a way to bring in a Noah Hannafin. And I know I brought his name up a lot. I don't know if people saw it, but Calgary basically said, hey, we stink. Everyone's available, so give us a call.
They put a for sale sign outside the arena.
And like Noah Hannafin has a modified trade no trade clause, so like he has an 8-team no trade list, I think. So if you're the Blues and you feel like, hey, this guy could be a part of our future, let's see what Calgary wants and see if we can make this work, because now we're locked down even better defensively. So I'd say the Blues.
Edward Cabrera threw 100 innings this year. How many walks do you think he had in those 100 innings? He had 120 strikeouts.
200 walks.
No. How many strikeouts you say he had?
He had 118 strikeouts in basically 100 innings.
He had to average a walk an inning, so I'm gonna go like 100 and.
Oh well, come on.
Well, no, wait. The leader
9 walks per 9. Come on.
No, sorry, I done did the math wrong.
I done did the math.
Let's see. Cease was at 79 this year. I'll go. He was at 70.
Again, he had 100 fewer innings than Cease basically, and had 66 walks. He had 7.
I wasn't that far off.
He had
he
6
called you an
walks
idiot.
per 9 innings. 6 walks per 9 innings.
That's good.
I'm telling you, I saw him pitch in St. Louis, and it was like, oh my god, this is
Snell
tough
had
to watch.
5, and he led all qualified starters.
But if you get out of the inning clean, what does it matter? Right? Who cares how many walks? Look at John Gant. Called him Houdini himself. Found a way to get through it, didn't he? Until it blew up, and then they got rid of him. But up until then.
Starters to throw at least 100 innings this year. Walks per 9. Worst in Major League Baseball, Michael Kopech with 6.3. Second, Edward Cabrera at 6. Third, Blake Snell at 4.9.
Go Snell.
Whew. Is that what you want?
No.
All right, T-Bone. More likely to happen, Cardinals end up signing one of the top 3 starters. One of them is Blake Snell. Or the Blues make significant additions in season.
I actually think it's more likely Cardinals sign one of the top 3 because the Blues know that this is a retool, and I think if they're still kind of floating right around this spot that they're in now, 3rd in the Central, 3rd in the wild card picture, I don't see them giving up significant assets to bring in something major, because I also think too, if you bring in a top end, like if you're the Blues and you say we go out and we acquire Hannafin and you trade away assets in a retool, even if they bring him in, I don't view them as a cup contender. And so I think you're almost, I don't want to say you're wasting assets, and I understand you would re-sign him in this scenario.
But what are the assets you're getting rid of? Because if Calgary just wants to restart this thing and they want...
They're going to get something of significance.
Maybe, but maybe not something that is really going to hurt you.
First round pick.
Does that matter compared to you getting a 26-year-old number 1 left-handed defenseman?
I mean, we could draft the next Gretzky with that pick.
That's true. Yeah, you could draft that.
That does become a lot less valuable if the Blues end up being good.
And look at what we've been talking about.
Yeah, I
think it's the Cardinals. I think that the Cardinals are much more likely. I don't think that the Blues are going to give significant assets up at the deadline. If they're better than we expect them to be, I think they'll make an addition at the deadline. But I don't think it'll be a big one. And then I think next offseason is when you see them kind of push their chips in, where they say, okay, if this is going to be better than we expected, let's push down on the throttle a little bit, see if we can maybe progress this quicker than anticipated.
Why not jump the market there, though, if you got the guy available to you now?
Just because of the cost.
Again, I just don't know what Calgary wants. That's going to be the hard part. They might just take whatever they can get for something like this.
Noah Hannafin is going to get a significant return. The Blues traded a second-round pick for Nick Leddy on an expiring deal.
Yeah, but, I mean, what are we considering a significant asset? Because I'm not considering anything that's not on your NHL roster and a couple of your top prospects to be a significant asset.
I don't know. I think that you would have to give up, what was the deal that the Bruins defenseman?
Hampus Lindholm?
Hampus Lindholm. What did he end up getting?
I know it was a first and a couple of prospects. Here, I can pull it up.
I think it'll be something similar to that.
Yeah, you gave up a first-round pick, 2 second-round picks, and a guy that was selected in 18th overall, a defenseman who was in the AHL.
So you're talking about Jimmy Snuggerud or Bolduc, plus a first-round pick and a second-round pick. It's probably something similar.
If it's the Bolduc thing, I think you're upgrading your team for the long term if you find a way to get them locked up.
It's a lot, but I think that's probably similar to what it'll be. Alex, what do you got?
All right, guys, more likely to happen. Let's go back to the Ferrario 5 bold predictions at the beginning of the season. Boy. More likely to happen. The Blues end the season with a top half of the league defense and goals allowed, or Jordan Binnington is a top 10 goaltender. because those are my 1 and 2 bold predictions.
They're very much connected, but I think at this point, I expect Binnington to be a top 10 goaltender. So I would say that one.
Yeah, I think that's where I would come in on this one as well. As Benner would be a top 10 goalie. I agree, they're probably connected, but I would probably say that because he's been awesome. And look, I've been impressed with the defense, but I've been really impressed with what Jordan Binnington's been able to do so far this year.
I mean, if Binnington falters, you could see Joel Hofer get games and the defense still be good. So, I mean, you could have a struggle for Binnington and the defense continue to succeed. But I would actually say the Binnington one as well. He looks different right now. And I pulled this one up, like that stretch that they went on that 7-game win streak last year where we were like, oh, hey, the Blues might be back. Binnington was unreal there and then fell apart towards the end of November and December. So you still got about a month before you're into that territory where he's falling apart. But that guy looks different right now than what he did in the last couple of years.
T-Bone?
More likely to happen. The St. Louis Cardinals extend Jordan Walker this offseason, or they sign one of the top 3 starting pitchers?
The latter. I know that everybody thinks I'm pie in the sky, and maybe I am. And maybe I'm going to be proven incredibly wrong here. But I still am not ruling out the possibility, likelihood, whatever you want to call it, that the Cardinals are going to be in and very in on the top 3 pitchers. I think they're going to be in on Nola. I think they're very interested in adding Aaron Nola to this rotation. And if that means giving him $30 million a year over 6, I don't think that's something that they're going to completely eliminate from the realm of the possible. So I'll go that they sign one of the top 3 starters. I think he's the one, though. I think it's more likely they sign him than either of the other 2.
Yeah, I think it's Jordan Walker gets the contract extension because we know that this team loves giving out contract extensions, and I could see them doing that with Walker and saying, look, we're going to get this guy locked up right now. I'm starting to really doubt that this team's going to get one of those top guys. I think the top guy is going to be in a trade, and I don't think it's going to be as overwhelming as people expect it to be.
I think I would side towards the Walker one as well. I think they desperately want Nola. I'm not questioning that. But I think if this market gets into that $200 million, I don't think they're going to overextend themselves.
That's fair.
And I
don't blame
honestly,
them if it gets to above $200 million.
I honestly hope they wouldn't extend themselves on Nola if it gets into that $200 million range. So I would lean towards the side of Walker. If you ask me, I honestly don't know if they're going to extend Walker this offseason. I don't think they're going to. I think they're going to probably wait another year and see if he can repeat this. But I would take that side over them signing a top 3 starter.
He's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, we're diving into the junk drawer. But next, you may be asking yourself, why is this stretch any different than the Blues going on that 7-game winning streak last year, around this time of the year? We'll discuss it coming up here on 101 ESPN.
I've already got a plan for later on today when I get home to take the girls down to Ted Drew's famous frozen custard. Why? Because it is going to be beautiful outside. And Ted Drew's famous frozen custard has been bringing families together since 1929, just off of Chippewa, for that delicious frozen custard. And it's not just a dessert destination. It is a St. Louis institution where you park, you get the frozen custard, and you just sit and enjoy time with the family. And look, they've got all types of flavors that you can ask for. Whatever you want, mix and match, they'll do it for you. Now that it's fall season, why don't you get the great pumpkin? It's a slice of pumpkin pie mixed in vanilla frozen custard topped with whipped cream. And while you're out at Ted Drew's famous frozen custard, first of all, you could buy it in bulk and take it home, freeze it, and use it for the holidays. But walk across the parking lot and check out their gift shop where you can shop for Ted Drew's t-shirts, hats, drinkware, and you can get gift cards. Perfect gift for that person that you don't know what to get them. What better way to say I love you than Ted Drew's famous frozen custard? So get on out there today. Get out there this weekend. Get out there as much as possible and enjoy that famous frozen custard off of Chippewa and find out why it really is good, guys and gals.
Terry Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Last night, the Blues beat the Tampa Bay Lightning 5-0, and they are back in action tomorrow night as they start a West Coast swing as they visit the San Jose Sharks. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 8:30 with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Kerber for Puck Drop at 9:30. This Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff. Find your road trip 24/7 at londoff.com, londoffAutoplex.com. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. It was a lightning letdown in the Lou last night as the St. Louis Blues find a way to come out victorious against the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Keep it to yourself.
And Alex, some are wondering if this is just what we saw last year.
Oh.
Where you look around this time of the year and the Blues start to play well again. This was coming off of that 8-game losing streak, which was just an absolute disaster. And then they won 7 straight. We're like, all right, who are the Blues? Are they the team that won the first 3 games of the season? Are they the team that lost the next 8 games of the season? Or are they the team that won the next 7? They ended up mostly being the team that lost the 8 that the Blues ended up becoming over the course of the regular season. We don't have that streakiness to this year's team. But what we do have is a hot stretch right now where you're seeing the goal suppression while also adding in the goal scoring. Is this just a hot streak that's going to dissipate and we go back to being the, I don't really know what this team is. Maybe they're just like a slightly below 500 squad. What is this? How does this feel compared to this time last year, Alex?
Well, Brandon, I'd love to push back on that. These are 2 different things, and that was just a hot streak, and this is a real team. But if you look at the numbers, they're about as even as you can ask for. So that 7-game win streak, you were averaging 4.1 goals per game, allowing 2.2 per game. So far in this 6-game stretch, you're averaging 4.5 goals per game, and you're allowing an average of 2 goals per game.
And they did have a couple of big wins in there.
Yeah.
They beat Vegas on the road. 3-2. They beat Colorado on the road 3-2. I remember that was while I was out in Boston up in the Northeast, and we had talked about it. Those are the 2 games. If the Blues win those 2 games, you feel like maybe they're back on track. They did. They continued. They got that 7-game winning streak. It was like, okay, maybe this is going to be fine. And it wasn't.
And the power play, by the way, sucked last year in that stretch, and it still has not been good this year in the stretch. Here's why it's different, in my opinion, though. The attitude of the team. Because in that 7-game stretch last season, prior to that, they looked like a team that was lost. They looked like a team that was defeated. It looked like a team that needed that 7-game win streak to figure it out. And then when they lost again, they weren't mentally strong enough to get out of it. The snowball effect. This year, we've seen it time and time again where a game that has looked porous for them, really, from start to finish, there's been about 3 games this season that you said, yeah, the Blues have not been good. A lot of the losses that they've had, the Blues have been in, and it's just been dumb mistakes that they've made. But they follow that up with a consistent 60-minute effort, and they've seen the fruits of their labor. Steve Ott last night talked with Kerbs and Matt Lashoff after the game, and they asked him, what's different about this team right now? And he said, I'm seeing a heck of a team game. The rhythm, compete level keeps ramping up. The details are solid. That was never the case last season. Even in that 7-game win streak, the details weren't solid. You just started to play a little bit more sound hockey. From start to finish this season, the structure's been in place. The forwards have been being involved. The offense has been kicking up, and your goaltending has been consistent. That's why I would say last year was just a hot streak, and this year is a lot more consistent.
I think it is twofold for me. I think one is something that just can't be judged by numbers, and that is there is definitely chemistry in 3 lines, but you have a 4th line. You're just trying to figure out the 3rd line right now. Last year, I mentioned this on, I think it was Monday or Friday of last week. Last year, there was never a point where I felt like, okay, they figured out their line combinations. It never happened. We were talking about Josh Levo being up on the top line with Ryan O'Reilly.
The only line that was good was Kyrou Thomas and Buchnevich.
Yeah, so they never really found 4 lines that I felt like, okay, they found something here. I think they've got that with 3 of the 4 lines right now, and they're just trying to figure out the 3rd line. But Vrana scored last night, so maybe that line can get on a little bit of a heater here. They've got a 4th line that they trust. I like the top line with Kapanen, Thomas, and Buchnevich, and then I like Saad, Shen, and Kyrou. And then the second one for me is, and you can use the numbers on this, is they actually have a goaltending tandem that's actually stopping the puck for them this year. Yep. And look, I know a lot of people will text in immediately and go, well, that wasn't Bennington's fault. I agree to a certain extent it wasn't Bennington's fault, but he's making the big-time saves when they are needed this year, and you've got somebody that you can throw in net when he needs a night off, like Joel Hofer. Last year, they threw in a game with Thomas Grace. You went, well, lost. Yeah. It didn't even matter. Like, they didn't have a 1-2 punch with their goalies, and Bennington wasn't playing at this level, so that's why it feels different to me.
You don't have the opportunity to use that as an excuse this season because the defense is playing sound. Last year, you could use it as an excuse because they allowed those chances. They've been tight from start to finish this year.
I think the biggest difference is it's easier to build around goal suppression than it is to build around goal scoring. Like, the truth is, think about in Major League Baseball, right? We'll go back to the regular season. Some of the teams that get out to hot starts by hitting their way through the season, and we know the pitching is going to be a problem. I think the Pirates were honestly this early on last season. It was like, man, that offense looks like it might be better this year. Yeah, but just wait. The pitching's going to end up coming back down to earth, and that's going to be a problem. The Reds, remember when the Reds went through that hot streak? It's like, man, look at this offense. Like, all these young guys that are coming up, yeah, the league will adjust, and then they're going to end up finding their level because their pitching's not good enough. And you can't win consistently by just outslugging your opponents. It's a really hard way to live. And that's the way that the Blues tried to live last year. And when that offense, you get a puck bounce that doesn't go your way. The power play doesn't come through on any given night. And you have a goal that ends up going in the other direction. That's a head dip moment. It's like, oh, damn, like, we got to score 5 goals every night. It's a really hard way to play, and it becomes completely unsustainable over the long haul. The Blues decided to go the opposite route this year. And it's frustrating to watch at times because it's so damn boring. It is. It's not fun. It's not fun to watch baseball when your team is built around run prevention.
It's not boring to win.
Fair, but the Guardians have been this team for years. It's been pitching, defense, base running, just enough hitting, right? That's who they are. We all know it, and they get a bunch of wins out of it. They win that division damn near every season because of the exact things that we just talked about. Nothing about that is interesting. Nothing about that is fun. But guess what? It wins. And the Blues this year have committed to a style of hockey that is more likely to win them hockey games. So why is it that I'm buying into them this year when I didn't buy into them at this point last year? It's because of what I just said. This is more sustainable. You can win this way over the long haul. I don't know if their defense is real, but if it is, yeah, you've got a good enough offense where you can find ways to score some goals. The defense is what's potentially going to keep this thing afloat. This point last year, you were allowing 3.6 goals per game. This year, 2.5. This point last year, you were scoring 2.6 goals per game. This year, 2.9. You don't have a great offense right now. It's not. The difference between this year and last is the goal suppression. 2.5 to 3.6, boom, there's your story.
And I'm not sure how anybody could deny that this defense isn't good and it's not sustainable, because if you've gone 14 games, if a defense isn't sustainable, you only get what they've done this season for 2 to 3 games before a team unveils your weaknesses. And the Blues have gone up against a lot of different systems. Like last night, they went up against a Tampa Bay Lightning team that loves to play that speed, stretch the ice type of hockey, much like the Vancouver Canucks played against you. And the Blues found a way to eliminate that by standing up at the blue line and forcing them to dump it in and win those puck battles. They've gone up against, and I know the Winnipeg Jets game have got out of hand, but at even strength, you've outplayed the Winnipeg Jets. It's been power plays that they have killed you. So even strength-wise, defensively, you've really kept them to the outside. The only game, even strength-wise, that I really feel like the Blues got outplayed from start to finish would have been that Vancouver Canucks game, because even the Arizona Coyotes 6-2 loss, that was a mixture of you going 1 for 3 on the penalty kill and Joel Hofer having a rough night. All of the other games you've been in at even strength. So there's no denying that this defense, and as Kerbs told us at 11:30, Mike Weber's right. You can do whatever you want if you've got the right structure in place. And it seems this team is confident knowing that their structure works defensively, which is why this is not just a streak, because if things go haywire, you can go back to what's worked rather than sit there and say, well, what do we do? Because last year, when things went bad after your 7-game win streak, it was hard to go back on what you did, because what you did in the 7-game win streak was also what you did in that 8-game losing streak.
What you did was just outscore your opponents.
Yeah.
He's Alex Ferrario, that's Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up next, the Jug Drawer here on 101 ESPN. going on, BK? Let's dive into the junk drawer. Alex, you said you got a story for us today.
I do got a story because I've hit a moment in my parenting life over the weekend. And you'll get there. T-Bone, you probably listen to this music already by yourself.
Yeah, I'm ready to dance along right now.
But I am now...
These hips don't lie.
I have officially... I have realized what people with kids have told me prior to me having kids, that this song is the most obnoxious damn song in the history of kids' music.
Oh, I like this one.
My daughter...
Oh, let's keep it going.
No, God, no. Please, no.
Please,
no.
I'm going to have it in my head all day now.
Mommy shark doo 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 doo. Mommy shark doo doo.
I am asking parents.
Mommy shark doo 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 doo.
I'm asking parents for advice because my daughter loves this song. She does the motions in the car, and honestly, it's fun for me because watching her do the motions, and when she gets to Grandpa Shark,
happiness is a good thing.
she does a Grandpa Shark. I'm like, is this what Grandpa sounds like? Anyway. I don't know if there's a more annoying kid song than this, though, because she's in the Coco Melon stage. So it's Baby Shark, it's Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, it's Wheels on the Bus.
We're rocking it.
I've hit my limit with this where it's like, oh my God, please not again. How do you survive this? Do you have to go into your own happy place in your mind when this song is playing?
Enjoy your daughter being happy.
I am enjoying my daughter being happy, but in my head, the rest of the day, I'm singing, Baby Shark, stop it!
Yeah, so those times when Alex isn't listening to us
it's
and he
Baby
repeats
Shark.
something, it's because he hears Baby Shark. Yeah,
yeah,
that's what's going on in his head for now.
You'll
so
see
when
me
he's confused and not listening, you know what's going through his head.
You'll see me every once in a while if you're watching our YouTube cameras. Every once in a while, I'll do one of these. Just kind of shake my head, be like, the hell just happened?
What's the TV shows that you're watching right now? What are we doing
so she's still into the straight Disney movies. It's Bluey. It's Coco Melon on
I've
YouTube.
Heard good things of Bluey.
Love Bluey. I mean, that's a parent show more than anything. It's hilarious, but the kids love it. But now she's Toy Story, and I love Toy Story. Top Gun?
Yeah, we working in any Top Gun?
No, if she's
Mission Impossible.
No, God, it's not going to be those.
Luca watching that right now?
It's not going to be Tom Cruise movies. No,
okay.
He's currently figuring out the sports stuff. Like he's big into hockey right now.
Oh no, are you showing him a bunch
loves the white screen and watching people move around.
Nice.
He's like. Obviously can't speak yet, but he laughs at it. He thinks it's funny.
Yeah.
And then during intermission, BK pulls up like a chart.
Analytics and
look at the heat map, Luca.
And then he says, Daddy, you're boring.
We're working on the Corsi ratings. He's getting there.
Yeah, he'll get there.
He'll understand it.
But I
need a photo of him with like glasses on now, looking at one.
Is there a more annoying kid song than Baby Shark?
I think it's great.
Well, I'm not saying it's not great. I love the fact that my daughter loves it.
I told him when he brought this up to me on, I don't remember if this was Friday or Monday. That's why I knew this was coming during the commercial break. I told him, I was like, we need to do the final punishment this year is you've got to like drive to Columbia with this song just on repeat.
Oh, I'd be belting it out, dude. This sounds great.
No chance you would be.
Look, the problem is, according to our text line, Alex, this is going to last about 2 years for you.
Oh, my.
Like, you're in this mode for 2 years. Now, that is when it becomes hell. And I take back everything I've said.
I try so
2 years. Like sleep regression has been about a month for us, and let me tell you, not enjoying it.
I try so hard to like turn on other songs for her because I'll turn on like Elsa.
Listen to this Luke Bryan song. Come on, I like this song.
I'll turn on anything, and I do the swaying where it's like, no, Daddy loves this song. Will you listen to it? Baby Shark, Daddy.
Yeah.
I will say, I'm going to try and videotape this. I'll post it one day. Watching her do the Wheels on the Bus motions, it is the cutest thing ever because when the baby cries, like Wheels on the Baby goes, wah, 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 she like legit gets sad. She'll sit there and she'll put her head down and she'll go, wah, wah, wah. And then when she does the mommy, it's a shh, shh, shh. It's amazing. It's like, God, this is hilarious.
Somebody said, Alexa, play Country Roads by John Denton. Boom, your problem is solved, Alex.
God, no!
Coming up next, college football playoff rankings came out last night, and oh, baby, did Mizzou get the respect that it deserves. We'll talk about it next, and I'll give you the scenario where Mizzou makes the college football playoff on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to talk about my insurance agent. She is Tracy Bibb. And Tracy, I got a scenario for you, and I want you to explain to me why Tracy Bibb in the Allstate Insurance Agency is the best way to go. So as it's the fall, of course, all of the leaves are falling, but I got a dead tree that the branch is now falling in my backyard, and it fell on top of the shed. This is why the insurance is important.
Oh, boy. Yeah, that's a good one. And dead tree, live trees are very complicated for a lot of people, especially if that dead tree happens to fall on your neighbor's stuff.
Oof.
That means that you could be liable for what has happened to their stuff, and they could sue you for that. So having good insurance, good home insurance, and then also even possibly an umbrella policy to protect you from those situations is very important. So good reason to give us a call. But yes, if that dead limb has fallen on your shed, we can get that covered under your home policy for sudden and accidental losses.
I will be already calling the Tracy Bibb Agency to take care of that. You need to be calling it as well to make sure you're taken care of. 314-328-4260 and ask for that free non-committal quote. 314-328-4260. It's no fib. You're always in great hands with the Bibb. Tracy, thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Go Blues.
Absolutely love it. That is a great football team. Gave Georgia all they could handle. This is a deserving ranking. You can say, what about the 2 losses? I don't care. Watch them play. They're very, very sound on both sides of the football. That's a great job by the committee putting them up in the top 10.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, that's what it sounded like last night on ESPN. I don't appreciate the, dismissive nature of Kirk Herbstreit. Good for them.
Way to go. You did it.
Good for the little upstart program out at Mizzou coming in at number 9 in the college football playoff rankings.
It's cute that you think you're
great.
It's cute that you think you're like Georgia in the SEC. Way to go.
You guys tried real hard in that game.
So
bless
proud.
your heart. I was waiting for a bless
your heart. It's
so
Kristen Claude.
Mizzou comes in at number 9 in the college football playoff. And Alex, this is a really big deal in all seriousness, because if they now win out, it all but guarantees they have a spot in the New Year's 6 Bowl. So they're almost certainly, again, barring something unforeseen, they should beat Florida. They should beat Arkansas. Those 2 teams are worse than Mizzou. They got to take care of business. But if they do that, they will be playing most likely in one of the Cotton Bowl, what are the other bowls?
Orange
the Fiesta?
Bowl?
No, not
Rose
the Orange
Bowl?
this year. Cotton Fiesta, or there's one other. I think it's in Orlando. Citrus, maybe. It's one of those 3.
Good for them.
Oh, way to go.
That is a really big deal. It would be the biggest bowl that Mizzou has played in since 2013. This would be a real, a bowl that people view as a destination type of a thing. Being at number 9 also technically means they're still alive for the college football playoff.
Baby shark, do 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 do, baby shark, do 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 do, baby shark.
Now, let me be very clear here. It's unlikely. as you could probably imagine.
Unlikely is the word you're going to use right now? How about impossible?
Yeah, I was going to say, let's change your adjective.
There's other words to use in that sentence.
I went through a scenario that is possible.
Good for them. Yeah, the scenario is the end of the world. That's what's the scenario.
That would arrive with Mizzou getting into the college football playoff. Are you ready?
No. Go ahead.
It starts with Washington losing this week.
Oh, okay, so it's not happening.
Washington is actually an underdog this weekend against Oregon State, surprisingly enough. Washington has to lose this game, and then they have to lose in the Pac-12 championship against Oregon. Again, I think both very possible. That part of it, not outlandish.
Yeah, it is.
Michigan has to lose to Maryland, which is quite unlikely, and then they would have to lose against Ohio State. Texas has to lose against Iowa State on the road.
That's possible.
Florida State has to lose at Florida. That's tough. And then they have to lose against North Carolina in the ACC championship game. Bama has to lose against Auburn in the Iron Bowl, and then they've got to lose against Georgia in the SEC championship game. Again, it's unlikely. If you put this into FanDuel as like a parlay of all of these things taking place, it'd be like 100,000 to 1. But technically possible. Again, only because Missouri right now is the top-ranked two-loss team in the country. In fact, they did jump Louisville, who has one loss on the season in the rankings. Big deal.
What a mistake.
Alex, I think Mizzou deserves this respect that they are now getting from the committee. I think this is exactly where they should be ranked. I didn't think they would get there, but I like the fact that they're in the top 10 right now nationally. That's amazing.
Yeah, good for them. You know, good for them to get there, just like Kirk Herbstreit said. No, you're right. I mean, a successful season that we've talked so much about that should end with them being in the top 10 like that.
Peach. Peach was the other one that I was forgetting about.
Love
it's the Peach Bowl. It's the Cotton, the Fiesta, and the Peach Bowl. Those are the three options.
Always
so
make
Atlanta,
sure,
Dallas, or Phoenix.
Always made sure I could save her as Mario Peach. Got to make sure you get that one. But Missouri should be there at the end of the season. That's the bragging rights for them for how they've performed this season, and especially if you end the year with 10 overall wins, which you should. That's the feather in the cap of a successful season to be considered a top 10 team in the college football.
And you've got a real chance, like, this part is real, of finishing in the top 5 of the college football rankings after the Bulls are played. That part is absolutely there for the taking, because you're going to have a lot of these teams in the top 8 that are playing against one another either in their conference championship games or certainly by the time they get to the college football playoff / New Year's Six. If you win out, and that includes one of those games that you'd play in a New Year's Six bowl, you probably finish around like the 5th or 6th best team in the country when it comes to the college football playoff rankings. I think that's happened one other time for Mizzou, and it was 2013 in recent memory. So it'd be one of the best seasons that we've seen in recent Mizzou memory. So that's a big deal.
Tanner?
Alex,
the
current top 8 teams in the college football playoff rankings is really who's actually eligible for this thing, if we're being honest.
By the way, real quick, if there is the scenario that played out for Mizzou in their 2 losses to be in the college football playoff, let's not have a playoff, okay? That's a lot of garbage that just occurred for everybody to potentially get into the playoff. This is why
it should be a 12-team playoff, because Mizzou's in it.
No playoff,
by
no
the way,
winner.
The 8-team playoff that we talked about, where we think that's the ideal scenario, if it went to 8, Mizzou would be getting in this year if they went out, by the way. Like, that is something that I did find interesting about this one, is we talked well, right now they're not, because
but they would be at the end of the season.
But whenever these teams play against one another, like Alabama's going to have to play against Georgia in the SEC championship game. If they lose that game, they would almost certainly fall behind Mizzou if they lose big in the rankings, and Mizzou would then jump them. They would get into the top 8. If Oregon ends up beating Washington, and Washington has one other loss on their schedule in the next couple of weeks, Washington would potentially fall behind Mizzou in these rankings as well. So Mizzou would get into the top 8, which doesn't matter this year, but we talked about 12 versus 8 versus 4 in the college football playoff. I think 8 is actually the number they should have gone with. If it was, Mizzou still would have been very much alive for that in the college football playoff. It is 4, though. And Alex, if you were to put together your ideal scenario, not the most likely, not what you think is actually going to happen, but if you could put together the 4 teams you would want to see in the college football playoff this year, who would it be?
I think it would be Georgia, Michigan, Oregon, and I'm torn between Washington and Ohio State as that 4th team.
Interesting.
I would lean more towards Washington than Ohio State, but it would be Georgia, Michigan, Oregon for sure, and then honestly, it's a toss-up for that last spot.
So I would go I would want to see in the college football playoff, and I want to play the matchup game a little bit. I would want to see Washington take on Michigan because I want to see Penix and that offense get to the playoff. They're a lot of fun, and defensively, I know they've had their struggles, and honestly, offensively, at times recently, they've looked a little just kind of clunky, but they're a fun team. I want to see that explosive offense against a great defensive team in Michigan, and I think the other one for me would be Oregon. I want to see Oregon take on Georgia, and I think Oregon is one of the best teams, and I think if they were to play Washington like this weekend, I think they would beat Washington. So I've got two Pac-12 teams. I think it's the best conference in college football this year, and I don't even think it's close. I want to see those two top Pac-12 teams in. I want to see Georgia. I want to see Michigan.
I think that's what I would want as well. The tough part here is it's going to be really hard for that to happen. We need Florida State to lose.
Yeah,
please. That's the one thing we need Florida State to lose, and really the only two options that we have are against Florida next weekend, not this weekend, but the weekend after, or I think it'll probably be North Carolina in the ACC championship game that they'll end up going up against, and that would be the one other option. It'll either be North Carolina or Louisville, one of those two teams that they end up playing against in that final game of the season. So we need one of them to be able to beat Florida State, so that way we can get our ideal scenario.
If Washington doesn't get in, Washington versus Missouri, is that possible for a bowl game?
It is, and that's my ideal scenario. I want to see Washington playing against Missouri, and I would really like to see that in Dallas.
That would be fun offenses going head to head.
Those two teams at that stadium, that'd be a hell of a lot of fun, dude. I don't know if Penix would play. That's one of the other issues about these bowl games.
Oh, yeah.
That aren't as a part of the college football playoff is you just don't know who the seniors are or the NFL eligible players are that are going to be participating in those. Mizzou, I think most of their guys will be in it. But I don't know about Washington because if you've got first-round potential draft picks, sometimes those guys end up dropping out. I think a quarterback will play. Typically, a guy like Penix will be in it. But some of their receivers, I'm not sure.
And that would suck. I mean, if you get that.
And if I were advising Penix, I'd tell him not to play in that bowl game, which I know a lot of people say, well, come on, I'm sorry, but it's a meaningless football game. Let's be honest. That's what it is.
Yeah. It's going to be a lot of fun, though. Mizzou, ideally, I would like to see them playing against Washington, but I'd be cool with them playing against Florida State. Like, if Florida State ended up outside of the college football playoff, that offense is a hell of a lot of fun to watch as well. They've got a really good quarterback, two legit first or second round talents at wide receiver as well. That would be another fun game. The one team I don't want to see is Oregon. I think they might be the best team in the country, and if they ended up losing again against Washington, I don't want to see that. Yeah. I don't want that, and I don't want Tulane. If I can avoid those two things, I think we're good. I don't need to see Tulane. Yeah. That team is really good, and if they end up in one of those New Year's Six bowl games, which is the expectation right now, I'm good. I'm good without that.
I'm hoping for like a Duke Mayo invite for the Fighting Illini to take on. Let's see, who do I want?
Don't they need to win another game to get eligible?
Yeah.
A Duke Mayo bowl game?
Yeah, that's a thing. Where
it's in Charlotte, isn't it?
I have no idea.
I'm pretty sure that
pour
game's in
Mayo
Charlotte.
on like Brett Bielema. Yeah. Maybe against like Texas Tech, who needs another win too.
Maybe they should hit the offseason
so
early.
You have to beat Iowa or Northwestern to get eligible.
Yeah, I think they can win one game. Probably more likely Northwestern.
You think?
Well, come on. Iowa scores like 15 a game. Anybody could potentially beat Iowa.
I don't know that they're going to beat Northwestern.
Yeah, maybe you should. Maybe you should focus on.
It's in the cards.
Maybe you should focus on recruiting transfers for next year.
Mark it down at 117. Even though I'm not even going to watch this bowl game that they make, they will qualify for a bowl. They will win one more football game.
And they'll say, "Let's opt out."
Coming up next, it's really nice to hear sometimes when national baseball writers feel the same way about your team that you do. We heard a couple of them mentioning exactly what you wanted to hear yesterday on a podcast. We'll let you hear it next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So yesterday, me and T-Bone, we listened to the same athletic podcast. It's got baseball writers. Three of them get together. They talk about the league. It's a good time. Good time to be had by all. Andy McCullough, Mark Carrig, and Grant Frisbee. Or Brisbee, excuse me. Not Frisbee.
Love Frisbee.
Very much Frisbee.
Love Frisbee.
Those three get together. They talk about baseball. And yesterday, they did what they called the pressure index going into the offseason, Alex, about the teams that have the most pressure on them to sign legitimate, significant additions in order to improve their team for 2024. Some of the teams they brought up were the Giants, the Dodgers, and the Cardinals. Those were three teams that they immediately brought up. And I wanted to play some of what they had to say about the Cardinals because I think sometimes it's nice to know that, okay, the national people get it. They understand where we're coming from, and they see our team the same way that we see our team. And I think sometimes when we hear the stuff from MLB Network or elsewhere, it's like, man, do they not know this team? Did they not watch the same one that we watched? Like, well, I don't understand. So when we hear something that is kind of in line with what we're seeing, I think it's worth playing for us. So let's start with this on why the Cardinals need a starting pitcher so badly this offseason and why they view them as a team that is under significant pressure to add one.
You know what? I didn't realize this, but Katie Blue's been writing this. Like, they haven't had this many losses in the season since 1990. Yeah. Like, I mean, holy crap. Really bad ball club. Oh, man. But, like, it just tells you the standard that those folks expect. Those fans are obviously passionate. They're rabid. You know, it's a great baseball town. And those folks expect a certain thing from their club. And they didn't get it this year. So I feel like, hey, it's time. And with them, I think it's interesting because the need is so clear. Get one of these freaking pitchers. You better get one.
Better get two.
If you don't, then what the hell are you doing?
Get two, get three. I mean,
that's why I say them, because it's not like this is what they need. Here you go. And by the way, there's a crap ton of pitchers out there who are pretty darn good. So, like, to me, it's like if you miss out on one of the upper echelon guys there and you're a St. Louis Cardinals fan, boy, you know, like, that is a tough pill to swallow. Like, and even if you go down a couple tiers and buy in bulk, that still ain't enough. Okay, you need to get one of those guys.
Guess what?
Capital G.
Tough pill to swallow, but Cardinals fans have been swallowing those pills for the last 5 seasons.
100%, but he nailed it.
Yep.
He's 100% right. Like, you deserve here in St. Louis better than what you got last year. And how do you do that? Well, it's not by going and signing Jordan Montgomery, who you just had. You had him here.
You chose Michaelis over him.
If you end up going out there and adding Jordan Montgomery or the equivalent, which is like Sonny Gray. Sonny Gray and Jordan Montgomery are 6 to 1, half a dozen to another, right? If you do that and then you add, I don't know, another mid-tier starter, well, he could easily become next year what Jack Flaherty was for you this year. You didn't improve. You didn't get any better. You have the same thing that you had last year, but you switched out the names. Like, that's like having the same house that has a deteriorating foundation, but you just, like, switched out the blinds on the window and painted the outside. It's the same house. It's still crumbling, but it looks a little better. You know, aesthetically, it's a little different. We've made it a little more pleasing for the eyes. The foundation is broken right now. Go get the repair, man. It's time. It's time to get the foundation repaired. And it's good to hear that the national people understand that that is what's necessary for this team.
Yeah, but the problem is the homeowner doesn't see that there's a problem with the foundation and says, no, we can make it through another year just like we are. Let's cover it up and we'll be fine. Just put some wood underneath it. It'll hold it up. We'll make it through to next year until I sell the house. It's a pretty good comparison right there.
They continued.
Uh-oh.
They also had some thoughts on the back-end starting pitchers that the Cardinals could go out there and acquire. Now, this is a conversation that started about the Giants, but then it came back to them talking about the Cardinals and how, hey, you got to get those front-end starters, and then what else should you be adding to the mix? I thought this was interesting, and I know T-Bone has some thoughts on it as well.
It's a fascinating offseason for a team like the Cardinals looking for both top of the market and bulk because it's all there. And I'm almost a little sad that Farhan Zaidi is not going to get a chance to like survey the scene and go, we can fix him. Lucas Giolito. We're like, there are a lot of pitchers like that. I don't think the Cardinals can mess around with those pitchers, though. It's got to be, you got to have a quantity of quality, and you have to have someone at the top to anchor that, and you have to have you can't just mess around with a Lucas Giolito and whoops, he's really bad now. You've got to get some cost certainty.
Even if you're the Giants, I don't know if you want to be in the knob fiddling business at this. What I'm saying is you don't have to fiddle the knobs when you're like, you can just spend for the best players.
Right.
That's true.
Buy.
That's true.
Yeah, because the thing about fiddling the knobs, while it's fun and like there are certainly teams that have done it well and whatever, it's also still really hard. Go look at for real at the fiddling the knobs part, because we talk about all the successes because it's easy to see those, but like there's a lot of knob fiddling that doesn't get reported because they turn out like shit. That's why, because it's hard.
What are you laughing at over there?
How many times do they say knob fiddling in like 30 seconds? You know, the tough thing about knob fiddling is you fiddle the knobs. It's not hard. It's too hard to fiddle the knobs. Were we talking about pitchers still?
Fiddling knobs is really fun.
Fiddling knobs is absolutely fun, especially if you get the right knob that you fiddle. But the problem is the Cardinals have been fiddling knobs that aren't really knobs. They're locks.
Now I've lost it. I've lost the train. So the point there, I think, was a good one.
Are we sure?
It was a good point. And then Alex.
Maybe we should have used a different euphemism than fiddling of knobs.
What they're trying to say is, hey, if we do a little more of this, a little less of this, we get you to do that, not that, it's going to work out for you here, right? The Giants are genuinely really good at that. Like, they bring in these pitchers, and it's like, oh, Alex Cobb is now excellent. He's going to go out there and have, like, a top 10 Cy Young type of winner. Kevin Gossman goes there for a year, boom, fixed. Carlos Rodon goes there for a year, boom, getting $160 million. Like, they're really good at this stuff. I don't know that the Cardinals are. I don't know that they're not. But I know that I don't really want to find out.
They're bad at this. When was the last time they fiddled the knob and it turned into something good? Huh?
Last year with Jordan Hicks, they fiddled some knobs. And by the end of the season, I think he was really good for them, man.
Okay, starting pitcher-wise. When was the last time they fiddled the knob and it worked?
Fiddled Matt's knob, but he ended up being good.
And it's been bad.
He just wasn't healthy.
Okay,
when he was healthy, he was pretty good, man.
I've had back-to-back seasons where fiddling of the knob has been, oh, well, he's not healthy, but he's been good. Fiddle it for an entire season. When was the guy good from start to finish?
It's a fair point. It is honestly a fair point. I would add this as like a counterpoint. The Cardinals have a new coaching staff in place. Now, you could use this as a counterpoint against me and say, yeah, BK, that's why I don't trust him. Fair. I don't know. But I think that the staff that was in place previously, I don't know if they could have fiddled the knobs correctly.
So you're saying Dusty fiddles the knob better than Dave Duncan fiddled the knob?
No, Dave Duncan fiddled all of the knobs. But
Mike Maddox just fiddled a knob to a World Series championship.
Did he, though?
Yeah.
Jordan Montgomery was good here, man. People are acting like this guy sucked and he went down to Texas and he became this ace. No, he was good. He was awesome in St. Louis, man. He was not the problem. The problem was everything else. Literally everything.
It's true. Sorry. I don't understand how you're trying to, like, defend the knob fiddling of the Cardinals and act like it can be done.
What I wanted to get it back to here was I don't want them to have to fiddle knobs. And what that means is, like, tell me if this guy is a knob fiddler or not.
God, to move on from the knob fiddling.
It's impossible. You put that audio in front of us.
I know, but I was ready to talk about how they were 100% right in what they said.
Lucas Giolito.
No.
You have to fiddle those knobs, right?
You don't have to fiddle those knobs. You got to pull it all off and put a new one on.
Jack Flaherty. Does he have knobs?
No, not anymore. Baltimore tried it and it didn't fiddle.
Kenta Maeda.
I don't think he's got knobs.
I don't think so.
If he does, the Cardinals can't fiddle it.
Mike Clevenger?
No.
No.
Michael Lorenzen?
No.
These are the guys that are in tier 2 or tier 3 and 4. Like, the only guys that you can sign that don't fit into this criteria: Nola, Yamamoto, Snell, Montgomery, Gray, Eduardo Rodriguez, Marcus Stroman, Imanaga? He would qualify as a non-knob fiddler?
I don't know. Who?
I'd agree with
Michael
that.
Walker?
No, there's some fiddling that needs to be involved there.
I think that Seth Lugo?
I don't think so, because like he showed that he could pitch as a starter.
Okay. You've got 10 guys available to you this offseason. Do you remember when I mentioned that there are 20 teams that are in the pitching market?
Yeah, but there are other teams that know how to fiddle.
Correct. And so maybe they go dumpster diving and they go, instead of going with the scuba, they're going snorkeling. Maybe. It's time for the Cardinals to go scuba diving. and to stop with the fiddling of the knobs and to start going out and getting the good pitchers that you have to pay for.
But see, the problem is everybody keeps telling the Cardinals that they're good at fiddling knobs, and so they believe they're good at fiddling knobs.
Is anybody telling them that?
Probably. I think Mo's probably telling Gersh, and Gersh is telling Mo, like, hey, we're good at this.
Now, I think where they could fall into kind of, what would be the word, false hope that they can do this is they... Again, I heard the argument of Matz and Hicks. They may look back and go, well, look, we were able to fix a Lester. We were able to fix a J-Happ. You didn't really fiddle with the knob. It was more of the defense around them was really good. And if they had a good defense in Washington, and I don't even remember where J-Happ came from, then they would have been decent pitchers there, too. They just had bad defenses, so you just kind of plucked them into an already perfectly running system.
Also had a Hall of Fame catcher.
Yeah. Yachty helps. He's going to be back, though.
Yeah.
Is he? Yeah. He's going to be back occasionally from Puerto Rico, where he zooms in and gives people. He's the best fiddler.
Yeah.
Never went down to
play one instrument, what would it be? Would it be the fiddle?
No. God, no.
I've always wanted to find a way.
You've always wanted to fiddle the knob?
I've always wanted to be a sax player.
That's the one, dude.
I played the sax.
So cool, right?
I want to play the ukulele.
I wouldn't look cool doing it, but everybody that actually plays the saxophone looks so cool.
I regret not.
You look like a flute guy.
Yeah, no, you look like a clarinet guy.
I was going to say clarinet. Maybe the recorder.
Yeah.
We all learned how to do that in like the
that's
third
for
grade,
the cool
right?
kids.
Cool kids hang out. Cool kids you hang out with that play the recorder.
Oh, my homies, you know.
Oh, my homies. I played the saxophone. I wish I would have stuck
Did
with
you
that.
really?
I played trombone.
From grade school up until my senior year at high school. I played the saxophone.
I was in the band for one day in high school because you had to sign up for either vocal or band. And they
Thank
talked
God
about
for not signing up for vocal.
Well, I ended up going over to vocal. I was in the honors choir. That was before my voice changed a little bit.
He fiddled some knobs to get into that.
Went to one day. They were like, hey, here's how much you're going to have to practice. I said, excuse me, I would like to go back to vocal. I'm going to go to the other side. They didn't say anything about practicing. I'm going over there. So I was going to be a saxophone player, but then I
loved the saxophone. And like I actually got pretty decent at it, but then I just stopped because I got into other things. I regret doing that,
I
though.
played trombone. Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah. I was
Yeah,
trombone.
my buddy played trombone.
I can totally picture it. Now, practice makes perfect, BK. I'm out.
Yeah,
I don't want to do
know,
it.
right?
No, not me.
Banjo was the other one. I wish I could play the
I
banjo.
want to play the ukulele.
It's the guitar. It's just a mini guitar.
You can do the harmonica.
So is
The harmonica? Dude, that is harder than people think. I've tried, and it is not easy.
Really?
Drums, too, but I'm not coordinated enough to do the drums.
Tough one.
Someone
Coming
else
up
quit
next.
talking about the knobs.
What?
Someone's tired of us fiddling knobs.
Wow, guess
Somebody
what?
should fiddle the blue or the Bills' knobs.
Nobody's fiddling the
Almost
Blues
a
knobs. The
smooth
Blues can fiddle their
transition.
own damn knobs.
Damn it, I was so close. NFL Quick Hitters is next.
Terry Hendricks, New Day Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Blues beat the Lightning last night 5-0. They'll be back in action tomorrow night as they start a West Coast swing. And first, they will visit the San Jose Sharks. We'll bring in coverage tomorrow night starting at 8:30 with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Kerber for Puck Drop at 9:30. This Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Oh, baby, you know what that noise, sound, music means? It's time for some NFL quick hitters here on 101 ESPN.
You got way too excited for something that you...
I'm
Didn't
on
know what it was.
so much Mucinex
I know
right
why.
now.
I know why
So
you're not
much
banned.
Mucinex. And so my thoughts are a little cloudy.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
blame it on
sure.
that.
Let's blame it on that one.
Guys, which home loss by what we thought to be an AFC contender
Look at how slow he's going now reading the copy.
caused the most concerns?
Which part?
The Bengals losing against the Texans, the Jaguars losing against the 49ers, the Ravens losing against the Browns, or the Bills losing against the Broncos. Alex, which one was the most concerning in your mind?
It's the Bills losing. I mean, week after week after week, it's more and more likely that this team's going to miss the playoffs and everything is going to go. And by everything, Stephon Diggs is probably going to be gone. They're going to fire their head coach. The only thing that will be left standing, it's like Will Smith at the end of that episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, standing in a room with nothing around him. That's what Josh Allen's going to be looking like at the end of this season. It's absolutely the Buffalo Bills. I think the Ravens are inconsistent, but I think the Bills are just showing that they're a bad team.
I think I agree with everything you said there because, I thought there was a chance the Bengals could lose that game to the Texans because they've got, arguably the quarterback that's playing the best in the National Football League right now in C.J. Stroud. The Jaguars, that's a disappointing loss to the 49ers, but if you let that game get out of hand, it will really snowball on you against a really good team. And then for the Ravens, again, the Browns have one of the better defenses in the NFL. What's the excuse for the Bills? The Broncos stink. Offensively, they're not great. Their quarterback's fine, but he's got to run more than ever. And the reason you lost that football game is because you were turning the ball over, and some of that was on your quarterback. So I would definitely say it was the Bills, and they are definitely trending towards the biggest disappointment of the NFL season, I would say, because I'm concerned they're not going to make the playoffs.
I'm a little worried about the Jaguars. 34-3 is an embarrassing loss. I know that you played against the 49ers and they're great. You shouldn't be getting held to 3 points against them. The previous week, you scored 20 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. This offense has been very hot and cold for much of the season. Scored 17 against Houston, only mustered 9 against the Chiefs as well. I do wonder when they go into the playoffs and they're playing legitimate postseason threats, is this offense good enough? Because their defense is better than I think we gave it credit for coming into the season. I don't know that the offense is good enough to really hang with the legitimate contenders that are remaining on their schedule. They still have a game coming up in a couple of weeks against Houston. They'll play against Cincinnati. They'll play against Baltimore. They've got some real tests remaining on this schedule. We'll learn there what the offense is capable of, but for them being as exciting offensively with as many stars offensively as we thought that they did, I think that's the one that concerns me the most because I had a really high opinion of them. This was coming off of a bye week. And they got absolutely demolished at home.
Yeah, see, they don't concern me because to me, I think Houston's proven they're already the better team. I'm starting to doubt Trevor Lawrence. That offense is way too inconsistent, whereas every single game, I know Houston's got the ability to put 30-plus points up, where I can't say the same thing about Jacksonville.
Next thing up, guys, are you buying that the Commanders are going to stick with Sam Howell as their starting quarterback moving forward? Because people seem to be excited by him. He is leading the NFL right now in passing yards. He is third in passing touchdowns right now. A lot of this is just because he's throwing the ball at an incredibly high rate. Are you buying that they have found their quarterback in Washington?
I think I'm buying the fact that Washington believes it. I'm not buying that they did, but Washington's probably looking at it and saying, why wouldn't we stick with a guy who's top 5 in both passing touchdowns and yards thrown in the NFL? They're probably thinking, let's actually put a decent team around him, which maybe you shouldn't be trading away your best defensive players, but that's not the point. I think Washington's in this denial stage where they're like, oh, yeah, we could win with Sam Howell because his numbers look great, when in reality, he's an average quarterback with a mediocre team around him.
Correct me if I'm wrong. They don't have a GM that's not their head coach right now, correct? Like, I don't think there's a roster decision.
They do.
Or they just named him. Because I know Ron Rivera was in charge of it for the longest time under the old ownership group.
I believe
Martin Mayhew, it says.
Yeah. I think they're a team that's about to go through a major transition. So they're saying all the right things with Sam Howell. He might be the guy that kind of leads them towards this rebuild until they can get a good spot to draft their next quarterback of the future. But no, he is not the long-term answer in Washington, and I'm not buying it because I don't think Ron Rivera is going to be their long-term.
That's where I'm at, too. I'm not buying this. I just don't believe it. I don't believe that you're actually going to be building around Sam Howell. Now, he might be your starting quarterback in 2024. But if you're doing so, it means you're going through a significant transition period where he's a placeholder.
Yep.
He is for them what last season Marcus Mariota was for the Falcons and what this year Desmond Ridder is for the Falcons, where you're not actually building around this guy. Everybody knows they're not the answer. But you don't want to invest in the position just yet. You're waiting for the next guy to really be able to surround himself with the right amount of talent, and then you plop in the quarterback as the last piece. I think that could be what we're going to see in Washington, where they're going to try to have the last piece be the quarterback. Maybe Sam Howell allows you to transition a little bit better there. All right, final thing here. Speaking of quarterbacks, and the fact that Sam Howell is leading the league in passing yardage this year, I think is indicative of what I'm about to ask you guys. The average quarterback MVP, the last 12 to do it. The average quarterback MVP, last 12, finished the season with 41 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. The last MVP that was a quarterback that had fewer than 35 touchdowns in a season was Tom Brady in 2017. He won it because the Patriots went 13-3 and he was the best quarterback on the best team. The only quarterback right now that is on pace to finish with more than 35 touchdowns are Tua Tagovailoa and Josh Allen. Both of them are also on pace to finish with at least 15 interceptions this year, which is not MVP type of numbers. The reason I bring this up, Alex, is because I'm going to ask the same question that I've been asking every week. Are we sure any quarterback, is deserving of winning the NFL MVP this year? Because I look at the Vegas odds, and they're basically screaming to everybody, hey, it's only quarterbacks that are eligible for this award, because it's Mahomes, Hurts, Tua, Lamar, Joe Burrow, CJ Stroud, Brock Purdy, and Josh Allen before I get to the first non-quarterback that is eligible for this thing at 30-1 odds with Christian McCaffrey. Are we sure it should go to a quarterback, though?
No, I mean, I'm not. I think it should be one of the playmakers in terms of Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, or Christian McCaffrey, but this goes to my hypothesis that the MVP, it doesn't matter what the other playmakers do because it's the quarterback that always gets the glory.
That's dumb.
It is dumb because Tyreek Hill has been the MVP of that team. It's not because if Tua was the MVP, we'd be talking about Jalen Waddle the same way we'd be talking about Tyreek Hill. 100%. If Brock Purdy was the MVP, we'd be talking about Deebo Samuel and George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk like we're talking McCaffrey. Same can be said about Jalen Hurts if we're talking A.J. Brown because we'd be talking Devontae Smith. I think it's just the easy cop-out way for people to say, oh, yeah, the MVP was the quarterback because he threw the most touchdowns and had the most points. Whereas I think you need to be talking about the most influential player on that team.
Yeah, I would not give it to a quarterback this year because I haven't seen one that I've just said is just such a difference maker for you this year.
If I would, I'd give it to C.J. Stroud.
That's the thing is, and even then, he was outplayed head-to-head against Bryce Young 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Like, we quickly forget these guys that had bad weeks. C.J. Stroud had a couple of bad weeks in the middle of it. He's been amazing for a rookie, but he's not deserving of the MVP this year. He's not. And I love C.J. Stroud. I think he's been a top 5 quarterback.
But he's the most valuable player in the league to his team because if that team makes the playoffs, they're not making the playoffs without C.J. Stroud.
I think you're right. I think you could put him. I think you could put Joe Burrow in there. You could put Lamar in there. Like, I think those are probably the guys that are really in the discussion for me right now. But I would have Tyreek Hill and... Yeah. I would have A.J. Brown and Christian McCaffrey and Micah Parsons and Myles Garrett. I would have all of them above any of these quarterbacks, honestly.
At least
I think all of them have been more valuable.
At least on those offensive weapons, I could plug any other quarterback, play with the Miami Dolphins, and probably be seeing numbers like Tyreek Hill's putting up right now.
Top 10 to 12.
Yeah. And that was kind of what I was going to say is if you remove Tyreek Hill, and like it's tough to make this argument in the NFL because, in baseball, we always say, well, if you plucked Goldie from the Cardinals, what would they have been that year? It's tough to make that argument because you have to have a quarterback to win in the NFL. But as we've seen before, like if you put a backup quarterback in for Tua, he has a cheat code still in Tyreek Hill. That's how much of a difference maker he is. I can't remember if Brock Purdy missed a game or not. I know didn't Darnold start one game? Yeah, you can give the ball to CMC and you're still going to be fine. You can dump the ball off to CMC. You still have the potential to be fine. Those guys are much bigger difference makers so far this year than what the quarterbacks have been.
I think Purdy ended up starting that game, but
I think that's right.
Coming up next, we're hitting the BK and Ferrario Rewind here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Hey, if you missed anything from today's show, be sure to check it out on the podcast page, 101ESPN.com. Free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. Alex, it's brought to you by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
If you go over to the app, you want to go to youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. You could also do it there.
Get that app.
Watch us on the Air Alliance cams. You hear a lot about fiddling knobs.
Oh, yeah. And O's and D's. D's and O's.
Good fun. Good, clean fun had by all today.
It's family
here
fun
on the show. Alex, we'll finish up the show by talking about the Blues.
Yeah,
because team looks good right now. And one of the main reasons why I'm starting to buy back in is because of the performance that we've seen from Torey Krug. I think he deserves his flowers today.
Absolutely.
Because given what happened with him in the offseason, and frankly, what's happened the first couple of years of him being here in St. Louis, it hasn't been the marriage that anybody expected or wanted it to be. Hasn't worked out. This year, he looks like the player that the Blues thought they were signing when they brought him in. The last 6 games or so, he's starting to show you the offense. The first 10 games, he was much more about his defensive performance. Alex, what are you seeing from Krug right now?
Confidence. I'm seeing confidence knowing that his offense was always going to come around, and he talked about how he's focused so much on the defensive side of his game this offseason because of what last year was. I'm seeing a guy right now who knows where his game is at its best. I think this change in structure really benefited him to go back to this zone style to where you can play your type. The outlet passes are crisp, and now the offense is starting to click. You know, Grant Francis, who does a phenomenal job on the Blues side for us, he was in the locker room a few days ago following a practice, and he talked with Torey Krug, and Grant said that they were doing a lot of just extra fun stuff after practice, passing the puck around, just messing around. And he said he talked with Krug afterwards off the record, and Krug told him, this is the most fun I've had since I've been in St. Louis.
That's awesome.
And that right there is why you're seeing the best of him, because I think winning's always fun, but when you're performing, when your team's performing and you like the system that you're in, you start to enjoy it a little bit more.
I feel like he's symbolic of the team in general, too. Because early on, you had the defensive-mindedness of everybody, and it was just up and down offensively. Mostly down, honestly. It was if start and stop is just ugly. Ugly performances offensively to start out the season. But the defense was mostly there. Mm-hmm. The goaltending was there. And it was like, okay, well, the structure's there. If they can get this offense going, then maybe you could see how this all comes together. But it was a big if. The offense wasn't just bad, man. It was historically bad for the first 10 games of the season or so. But it's taken off in a meaningful way, and Torey Krug has been a big part of that. So if they can continue that, again, a big if, this is a team that we can start latching onto, and we can start believing that, hey, maybe third in the division, wild card, that's up for grabs, and that's what the goal always was. Doug Armstrong mentioned that before the season. That's what they're hoping to be. We're about 5th of the way through the season, like 20% of the way through the season now. And you're there.
You want to be sitting in a playoff spot by Thanksgiving, and that's the goal typically for teams. Once you go into that Thanksgiving holiday, you're sitting in a playoff spot because you can push for it. But even if you're not, you want to be within reach by the end of November, because then you can actually, following Christmas, say, hey, we're in this race rather than being so far out of it. And that's what the rest of this month can provide. This West Coast trip is massive for the Blues to pad that gap between you and these teams in the below you in the Central Division.
The Blues are heading out west today, so Jamie Rivers is off. I'll be filling in with Anthony Stalter for the 2 o'clock hour. I believe Danny Mack is in from 4 to 6 as well. So for Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. I'll be back with Stalter here in just a moment on 101 ESPN.
Fiddling knobs is absolutely fun.